This guy became the deadliest person alive just by killing monsters and eating their meat, which gives him stats and power when he entered this game. He received the power of the Gourmet King, a legendary hero now extinct. He also acquired the abilities of the animals themselves. By eating meat from a chameleon snake, he became able to turn invisible and go unnoticed. By eating cheetah meat, he became able to run as fast as a cheetah. Now he has total control over his abilities and makes the best recipes that boost his stats and make him unbeatable. Everyone who tried to face him got brutally destroyed. In the last game, he was betrayed by his own friends and now he's hungry for revenge. Let's go back and understand who he was before all this hatred. Our protagonist called ANX became the most powerful player and ruled an empire that was unbeatable. Until one day, the people he trusted the most betrayed him and took over his kingdom. It was at that moment he realized that betrayal never comes from enemies, but from those we call friends. Back to his real life, he works selling fried chicken. While he's chilling, he hears on TV about a new game called Fate. When he finds out this game is about machine warfare, he instantly decides to buy it. The newspaper says you need to buy the diver capsule, and that's when it hit him that it's a VR game. At home, the first thing he did was go online and buy this capsule for the new game. A week later, his capsule arrived. Hyped up, he gets right in, turns on his VR headset and spawns in a forest for beginner players. A system alert asks what his nickname will be, and he chooses the nickname X for this new journey. A few days passed and everyone's still learning how this new game works. But our protagonist was already leveling up, killing the starter monsters. He barely started and was already level 5 and was already thinking he was the strongest in the game. After spending the whole day grinding, he decides to grab some food from his inventory. But as soon as he grabs his bread, it vanishes from his hand in the blink of an eye. He's staring, waving his hand around, not understanding what happened. But right in front of him, there's an old man eating his bread. Since this guy had no name, he realizes he's an NPC. To test the old man, he decides to give him another bread. The old dude gets super happy, but then decides to return the favor by giving him a candy back. X looks at the candy and thinks it's safe to eat, but he trusted a stranger way too much and loses consciousness. Sometime later, he wakes up and comes face to face with a feast of food. He goes for the food full of excitement, but discovers that everything is an illusion. The old man was there too, staring at him. X opens his eyes and realizes that everything he saw was just a dream. A notification pops up in front of him showing what his new skills are. He's confused about what these abilities are next. A quest appears about revealing the truth of the Gourmet King, and he notices that the reward and difficulty aren't measured at this. He's like asking, wait, the story is in my hands. He decides to eat the bread again, but this time when he eats the bread, he feels an incredible flavor, and on top of that, his stamina and strength stats increased. At that moment, he understands that his stats increase by eating the next day. He spent the whole day eating fruit to max out his stats as much as possible. When the fruit stopped being effective, he chose to start eating deer meat. He starts hunting all the deer and collects the meat and their hides. Going back to the city, he heads to a shop and puts all the hides up for sale. The vendor is impressed by how soft they are and asked if he has more to sell. But X says that's all he's got today. The vendor asks the price for each hide, and when he hears it's 1 gold coin each, he's shocked. X says he's gonna hunt more and will sell as many as he wants. This convinces the vendor and he decides to pay with gold and silver coins. Later, while he was hunting buffalo, some guy was watching him and wondering how such a weak dude is fighting monsters at this level. This guy decides to go to X to form a party. But the moment he reaches our protagonist, X logs out of the game, leaving Blondie hanging back to his normal life. He takes his shower, has his meal, and rests in an acrogel capsule. Hours later, he returns to the game. The moment he enters the game, he runs into the priest asking to party up with him. X accepts his request and says that next hunt they'll go together. The protagonist goes to the shop and the vendor called him into a room. He told him that the king wants to shut down his shop because he owes them more than 100 bison horns. Coincidentally, our protagonist has several in his inventory, so he pulls out the bison horn and says hell help with that. The vendor is shocked and thanks him, saying hell sell items at the best prices for him. At Kalen's restaurant, X talks to the head chef asking him to teach him how to cook. The chef wonders who this idiot is. To show he wasn't playing around, X started cooking to prove that he's serious. He decides to make some breaded chicken. After working his magic, he finished his dish, which even left the cooks in shock. The chef is skeptical, but on the first bite, his eyes widened at how delicious it was. They sat down to talk, and the chef talked to him about the Gourmet King. X connected the dots and figured out that the guy who drugged him was the Gourmet King. X thought it through and decided to tell him about the Gourmet King's gift. When he mentioned that he has the gourmet chef's power, the chef's eyes widened in disbelief. He had to make the food and have him taste it to see if there's anything different. X saw a system notification of this dish made by someone named Kalsmar when he told the chef. Kalens believes that X is really the successor of the Gourmet King. X mentioned his interest in the Gourmet King's recipe, but the chef didn't have it because he needs cave bear meat and it's really hard to get. The protagonist gets some armor and decides to go to this cave to get that bear meat so he can make this Gourmet King recipe. In the snowy plateaus, our adventurer walks amidst the extreme cold. Lucky that Kalen gave him a bunch of stuff before the trip. Otherwise, he would have turned into a popsicle. X defeats another white wolf, gaining more XP even avoiding fighting because of the blizzard. He's surprised to see his level increasing while daydreaming about fighting the bear. He hears someone calling for help. Turning in the direction of the scream, he sees a person about to be attacked by a creature. And it seems to be a child. The white wolf charges at the boy, who only screams for it to stay away, but is soon saved by Axe, who defeats the creature with a blow. The adventurer asks if he's okay, and the boy replies that he thinks so after the scare. The child thanks him for saving her, and introduces himself as Lon, the eldest son of the noble Terre de Veneta family. Nobility is synonymous with a lot of money. We already know where this is going. Axe introduces himself, and the boy thanks him again for saving his life. With shyness, Lon asks him to accompany him to his mansion, where he will explain his intentions to protect his family's pride. Well, it's cold, and there's still time to hunt the bear, so the adventurer agrees. A short walk later, they arrive at the Terre family mansion. Seeing how dirty it is inside, Axe begins to suspect the nobility of this kid. A few steps ahead, Lon greets the portrait of a gray-haired man, his father, looking at the kitchen. He also notices there's barely any food there. Suddenly, a blonde woman appears with a child, asking about the boy. The adventurer asks if it's just the three of them living in the mansion, and Lon confirms seeing their deplorable situation. He decides to prepare something with what they have in the kitchen. The food is served at the table. Better to talk with full bellies. Boasting a little, Axe says he's a famous gastronome, but who cares about that? Their hunger was so great that the stew didn't even have time to cool with a dirty mouth. Lon is even more grateful and vows never to forget this kindness, as does the family's younger sister, who also has her face all messy. Seeing the scene, Axe just smiles at them. Lon accompanies him down a corridor while saying his mother thanks him for the food. Reaching the end of it, the young man stops to explain why the mansion is in shambles. It turns out it's connected to a dungeon called the Tomb of Empty Branches, where they say there's a treasure at the end of it. Told by the Terre family for generations, Lan's father was one who believed in the legend. Even with the money and effort spent, he never managed to find the said treasure. And nothing that came out of the creatures was valuable enough to recover all the money spent. Because of this, the family went to ruin, and its patriarch couldn't handle the stress. Lon asks the adventurer to enter the dungeon and prove that his father was right. The quest, the legend of the Terre family, appears and is quickly accepted. Even though the reward is kind of lousy, you can earn quite a generous amount of XP inside. He then enters the Tomb of Empty Branches, feeling lucky to have found an unexplored dungeon right away on the vast map of fate, just like the skeleton that appeared behind him at the entrance. He doesn't waste any time and defeats the creature, earning a lot of XP just from it. However, he is disappointed to see that there was nothing valuable, just as Lon said. After a few hours, the dungeon boss appears in front of the adventurer. The creature launches a magical attack towards him, which he manages to defend with his shield. This time, it seems he will have to go to the creature, not the other way around. Axe advances against the creature while defending against its magical attacks. He raises his sword during the jump and delivers a final blow to the dungeon boss, defeating it. With that, the Tomb of Empty Branches is completed, and Axe gains a lot of XP. As a bonus, he also earns the title Solo Dungeon Crawler, which is pretty cool. The adventurer even liked the simple name. However, he notices that not even the boss had anything good, so the legend must be a hoax. Until he notices something on the ground. He uses the Divine Treatment ability and discovers a unique item, the Pure Spirit Branch. Without understanding this sacred flame effect, Axe lights it anyway. Several bright points appear on the dungeon wall. He approaches it more, wanting to see if there's something there. By doing so, he soon understands what this sacred flame is about. Our adventurer remembers that the sacred flame responds to dark energy and observes the crystals glowing intensely. This must be the treasure of the legend. Sometime later, the dungeon door opens, and Axe exits the place. Lon greets him nervously, as he was starting to worry about the delay. Not seeing anything in his hands, he apologizes for wasting his time. The adventurer smiles and says that, in fact, his father was right. Incredulous, the noble boy is confused by such a statement. Axe then decides to show what he found, already searching for something in his coat pocket. Then, the object is shown to the boy. It's a piece of black iron. One of the 5 rare ores of fate, super resistant and capable of attributing darkness to items, which, incidentally, is superior to the others along with light. So this stone must be worth a fortune. Holding it firmly, Lon falls to his knees on the ground and begins to cry, moved by discovering that his father was right. Standing and wiping away the tears, he vows to rebuild the Tear family and make it happy. The boy takes Axe's hand and asks how he could reward him. With some shyness, the adventurer simply responds that he could pay him in his own time. However, Lon remembers something he could give him at that moment, and hands him the Tear family crest, which surprises him with its special effect, which is quite interesting. Axe thanks him for the item and encourages him, confident that he will be able to restore the family. Outside the mansion, both wave to each other, ready to go their separate ways. Watching him leave, Lon wishes that the adventurer's days be filled with blessings. Field bosses, cave bears, give complete sets when defeated. That's why many players try to hunt them, like Axe and 5 others in the winter forest. He just looks at them arrogantly while thinking about how impatient they are, but also finds it strange that there are no other creatures around. He even wonders if that hunting area belongs to a guild or something like that. Suddenly, someone shouts to hunt as much as you want, while no one is watching. Without having time to understand, Axe sees a random group of players popping up in the area. It was expected, but it's still disrespectful to those who were there longer. Irritated, he heads towards the high-level guy of the group, who just calls him a loser and tells him to leave, as that area is theirs now. Apparently, he's gonna have to resort to force. He challenges him to a unknown, ready to make him call him Your Majesty. The high-level guy gives him one more chance, but Axe just tells him to grab the spear already. He can't believe a low-level nobody is calling him for a PvP. Well, he ends up accepting, but soon realizes he's wasting his time with a level 50. Furious with such audacity, he grabs his spear and shouts that hell make Axe regret this. With that, the combat begins, and the high-level guy already has his attack stopped by the opponent. Still surprised, he didn't have time to dodge the sword strike coming his way. Even he no longer believes that Axe is just level 50, given how fast he is. Another attack is launched against him, but he manages to block it in time with his spear. The fight has barely begun, and he's already taking a beating. Desperate, the high-level guy tries to think of a strategy to hit him, but Axe is as fast as Lightning McQueen, and delivers one last blow against him. Thus, the leader of that guild of troublemakers is defeated. Seeing him fallen on the ground, the other members are scared and don't know what to do. The adventurer just tells all these people to get lost, as this area is his now. Back to his hunt, he is still upset about the time lost in that confusion. Axe remembers that the cave bear was last seen near a lake, and decides to look for its tracks by the shore. After all, animals get thirsty too. Looking down, Axe finds the bear's footprints, and begins to follow them, leading him to a cave. Red eyes and heavy footsteps emerge from within. Finally, Axe found the creature he was searching for. The cave bear roars at our adventurer, who resists the intimidation and greets it ironically while drawing his sword. The creature tries to swipe at Axe, but he easily dodges. This is the perfect opportunity to test the skill he gained from eating stew. With that, he uses the shield of Kalshamar. The bear lets out another roar, and the adventurer jumps towards it with the equipment in front. Axe manages to hit the animal with his shield, leaving it stunned. However, it's still alive. He needs to defeat it quickly before the stun effect wears off, which will be fast, as he already found the monster's weak spot. Seeing it still recovering, Axe advances towards the creature and delivers a final blow with his sword to its chest. Thus, the cave bear is defeated, and more XP is added to his account. He can't believe how strong he has become to have defeated such a creature with just one strike. Amidst the snow, Axe sees the blessing of the winter forest, which nullifies any minor attack wearing such a heavy cloak. He feels ready for a fashion show. He also obtained the meat he needed, whose effects are, to say the least, strange. Unable to contain his curiosity, Axe decides to taste it to see how bad it is. The divine taste detects the flavor of carcass well. He didn't vomit, but eating it raw wasn't the best experience of his life. Axe uses divine cooking on the meat to see if it improves anything. However, nothing happens. It still reeks of game, either because he doesn't know recipes with it or the skills saw it's a lost cause. So, Axe decides he will make this greasy meat as tasty as possible. At the Maisie Inc. building, two developers discuss the official streamers of Fate. The one with the bowl cut feels sorry for the disqualified, while the one with the pompadour doesn't care. This is a perfect opportunity for players to earn a lot of gold and a salary, not to mention the enormous fame they will gain from it. Both agree that having the Fate streamer tag is enough to attract viewers. Context: the company is hiring people to work on its streaming platform. However, there are only 30 spots available, so the competition is fierce. The pompadour doesn't doubt that the next streamers will be like Kymus, flashy and strong. Already wanting to gossip, the bowl cut starts talking about the company's president, finding it funny that he got involved in Fate only now after so long. However, the pompadour laughs ironically, as he doesn't think the president got that involved. The bowl cut agrees. After all, the president only recommended someone to work with them. Still, he became curious about this person. In another room, a screen shows images of Axe interacting with NPCs and other players. Someone is watching all his progress, impressed with his evolution in the game. A player who doesn't do things half-heartedly and is meticulous even in the simplest tasks. Dr. Schubert's president considers him a rare gem deserving of a chance, and it would be very selfish of him to be the only one to see him change the history of Fate more than once. Back in the winter forest, Axe is still trying to cook the blessed meat. At times like these, he really wishes he had his normal taste buds back. Cooking for those who don't taste flavors like he does is harder than he imagined. However, the adventurer realizes something: he doesn't need to cook for other people. He's the only one in the cave, so there's no reason to make food for others. After frying it once more, Axe takes a bite of the meat. The divine taste detected a new secret flavor, giving him a new vision. Suddenly, he is in a forest, near two men sitting by a campfire, and he notices that the one in the purple cloak is the king of gastronomy. Despite his tidier appearance, upon hearing a loud scream, the adventurer looks back, finding himself facing an army of warriors coming towards the two men. Upon hearing the one in the red cloak being called, Axe quickly concludes that this is Kalen's great-grandfather. Then, the king of gastronomy uses the bear stance, emanating a strong energy from himself, causing one of the warriors to question what that is. The man then delivers a powerful punch to the ground, causing it to shatter. Axe watches the entire scene tensely, unable to believe that this beggar was so strong. Our adventurer observes the ground beneath the army exploding, unable to believe that these elite soldiers were defeated so easily. The last thing he sees in the vision is the king of gastronomy standing amidst the destruction, and he is looking back in his direction. Suddenly, Axe wakes up and questions if the developers know what balancing is. The divine palate detects the secret flavor of the first recipe of the king of gastronomy, causing the adventurer to acquire the original skill. Bear stance. He is very happy with the achievement. Now that he has this, he might have a chance against the war machine. Leaving the cave, the sun's rays hit his face with the recipe in hand. It's time to return to Chef Kalen's restaurant. However, learning to use his new skill is what excites him the most. So much so that he doesn't seem to have noticed the group of thieves about to attack him. Their leader is very interested in the large and fancy cloak he is wearing. Actually, Axe did notice. He's already used to this, and he quickly calls them to fight. The bandits emerge from their hiding place, ready to finish him off with them surrounding him. The group leader asks if he thinks he can defeat them. Now surrounded by thieves, the adventurer realizes there are many, and the guy continues, stating that there's no point in struggling because there's no one stronger than him there. Observing him more closely, Axe notices his red eyes. He is a rogue in fate. You can become one when your fame hits 0 and you keep doing bad things. They are easy to recognize because of the eyes, and there is no penalty for defeating one. The adventurer smirks. It's the perfect opportunity to test his new skill. Axe then uses the bear stance, causing him to emanate a great energy and even form a crater around him. With the thieves scared and confused, he takes advantage of the 30-minute buff he has and he thrusts his sword into the ground. At first, the bandits mock him, thinking it was just a show-off, until they see the ground explode beneath them, easily knocking them down. Seeing his feat, Axe gets very excited and decides to go hunting before the buff ends. But first, better take advantage and see what these little thieves have that's good. Back at the central square of Norville, the cook welcomes him excitedly at his restaurant. The quest Kalen's dream is completed, and Axe greets the chef just by looking at the cloak. The cook concludes that he managed to complete his mission. The adventurer confirms his hypothesis and offers to cook the dish for him to try, leaving him apprehensive and sweating cold. He's sure it will taste like shoe leather. However, Axe insists and prepares the cave bear meat anyway. With little choice, Kalen takes the first bite and immediately regrets it because it's a real mess. Really, only Axe can eat something like that. Despite the gag, he congratulates him, saying it's exactly as his great-grandfather described. With his hand extended, Chef Kalen thanks him and says to look for him anytime, smiling. The adventurer returns the gesture and says he certainly will. After this exotic meal, the cook asks where he will go now. Being a descendant of the king of gastronomy, Axe says he will go in search of the second recipe. Then Chef Kalen decides to talk about the whereabouts of someone connected to him, which surprises the adventurer. Well, actually, it's a guy fanatic about the king, but that's just a detail. His name is Liglian, a vassal who helped him and Kalen's great-grandfather on their travels. However, his loyalty turned into fanaticism sometime after his disappearance. Unable to accept his own death, he became an undead still waiting for the king. With hands clasped, Axe listens to the story attentively. From the description, he already understands that this Liglian isn't quite right in the head. Kalen advises him to head west of Norville, where he will find the Beach of Death, but upon arriving at the indicated location, he didn't expect to find it so vivid and radiant. Turns out he ended up at the Lover's Beach, full of couples dating. This leaves Axe and his skewer intrigued. He's not that bad with directions. He considers that this Beach of Death might be a hidden place that requires something to appear. The problem is knowing what needs to be done. Tired of eating, he decides to fish a little while thinking about it. By evening, Axe catches another rainbow trout, which impresses the mustached fisherman next to him. After fishing for 100 hours, the time catcher title is acquired, and even so, he has no idea how to reach the Beach of Death. However, something catches his attention as he pulls the line. A skeleton fish is caught, scaring the fisherman. Maybe this little fish is the answer he needed to find Liglian. With this in mind, Axe gives a little smile and takes a bite of the poor creature, which is just bones. Suddenly, a place full of skulls on the sand and lightning striking the Red Sea is seen. Indeed, eating fish bones can lead you to the Beach of Death. Definitely, this beach doesn't seem like the best option for a summer vacation, but our adventurer even prefers this one over the other, which is noisy and full of couples. Without having time to enjoy it, a hand emerges from the ground behind him. Looking back, he sees a horde of skeletons coming his way, which he finds perfect. That fishing simulator was getting boring. Drawing his sword, he wonders how much XP he will gain from these skeletons, and prepares to attack them. However, before delivering his first sword strike, Axe feels a strange energy around him. Out of nowhere, he finds himself in an empty and dark place, without his sword, and without his XP. A few meters in front of him, a black candle lights up, and a man with green hair and eyes emerges amidst the flames, clearly irritated to see him using violence in his territory. Tense, Axe asks if he is Liglian, the fanatic, and he simply confirms, the guy who waited years for the king and vowed to change the world with him, but who turned his loyalty into fanaticism. Turning his back on him, the undead asks why he came, and he says he wants to learn the king's recipes. Liglian stares at him. Hearing that name after so long didn't please him at all. Tense, Axe tries another approach, saying he is a descendant of the king of gastronomy. Not quite believing it, the man snaps his fingers, making both of them teleport to another place, possibly a mansion. Realizing how powerful he is, Axe decides he still wants to live a little longer. Liglian sits in a chair and asks the adventurer again about his interest in the recipes. Axe states he is ready to face any danger if necessary. The undead smiles slightly and says it won't be difficult to teach him. He thanks him, already celebrating that he will have another recipe in hand. However, the happiness soon turns to indignation upon hearing from Liglian that he is not ready yet. The undead says the reason is simple. The main ingredient of the recipe is a phoenix, one of the legendary monsters of fate, so powerful that it can't even be quantified. Knowing this, the adventurer is absolutely sure he wants to live a little longer, and decides to return later when he is more prepared. Liglian is thoughtful, still not quite believing that this is the descendant of the king of gastronomy. However, he thinks that maybe this one has the potential to heal the world. Before Axe leaves, the undead calls him, and says that even though he resents the king, fate brought him here for some reason. Liglian knows how heavy the destiny he carries is, so he wants to help him. Axe accepts his help, and the undead offers his original skill, Death Negator. With this, the quest to deal with a fanatic appears, leaving him surprised to receive both things right away. Liglian states that this skill will be very useful for someone as weak as him, and decides to show it in practice by launching a magical attack on him. Axe is defeated with just one blow, proving that the undead is not to be trifled with. Then, the Death Negator is activated, making him revive as a low-rank undead soldier. Now he will know how the zombies from The Walking Dead feel. The adventurer decides to check his attributes to see how much he has changed. My God, he is stronger and more vivid now as a little zombie than when he was alive. The undead is happy to see him satisfied with his new state, and Axe just feels embarrassed. Opening a portal, he tells him to venture into the forest before seeking what he needs. An important egg, hidden by the king and Liglian so the invaders wouldn't find it. Passing through the portal, Axe enters the forest of death. Despite having gone there, he didn't understand if this thing is super important for the recipe. It didn't take long to find the egg, which wasn't that well hidden. Right away, he realizes it's not just any little egg. Seeing it start to crack, Axe panics and considers going to Liglian, but there was no time. A little orange dragon emerges from the red egg. Well, the question now is whether the undead will accept it. With damages before he could think much, a specter tries to slice him from behind with a scythe. However, Axe notices the surprise attack and manages to defend himself, but has no idea how to defeat it in such a tight space. The adventurer attacks with his sword, imagining that Liglian wants to zombify him even more. Suddenly, the little red dragon appears by his side, making crying sounds, which surprisingly sends shivers down the specter's spine. Unable to withstand such ferocity, the creature decides to flee, leaving Axe confused. Crying can be scary too. In the mansion, Liglian awaits the return of the descendant of the king of gastronomy. He is not helping him because of the promise. He just wants his wish to come true. Suddenly, he sees the portal opening and an Axe passing through it along with a little flying being. The adventurer explains that the egg cracked along the way and asks if everything is okay. Liglian says he expected this to happen and asks what he thought of the little dragon. The quest to deal with a fanatic is completed, with it resting on his arm. Axe responds that it's cute, but he would like to know what the reward is. Liglian simply replies that it's this dragon, which seems to have taken a liking to him. Not believing what he gained after such a simple task, he thanks him and accepts the gift. He even imagines how this cute thing will make adventures easier. He names the dragon DD, which snuggles up to him all silly. The undead chuckles at hearing this terrible choice and bids him farewell for now. With a snap of fingers, Axe and DD are teleported out of the mansion, and the adventurer suddenly wakes up in some random room, already as a living human. It seems that it wasn't all a dream, since he managed to complete Liglian's quest. Happy as can be, Axe wonders if he's the first Fate player to have a dragon. Suddenly, a new message from Fate appears, leaving him confused. But the surprises don't end there, because Axe has been selected to be an official streamer of the game. Already in the real world, our protagonist logs out of the game. After 2 days lying in the capsule, it's no surprise that his body is all stiff, but that's nothing compared to everything he achieved in the meantime. Now, it's just a matter of taking a Tylenol and seeing what he needs to become a streamer. Happy as can be, he goes to his computer and starts his research. He discovers that he will have a monthly payment, donations, and 100 of the profits from ads. In fact, just the salary would be enough to not need to fry chicken anymore. Working by playing the dream of every young gamer with zero expectations for the future. 1001 live stream ideas cross the protagonist's mind like doing mukbang. Curious, he looks up the top streamers and of course, War Machine is in first place, and he's not surprised to see himself in 67th. Come on, he hasn't even started streaming yet. However, because of this, he decides to start by leveling up and gathering ingredients for a mukbang. The protagonist gives a good stretch, imagining that a nap would be nice now after so much time without sleep. He'll probably just collapse in bed anyway. Far from his apartment, spotlights are turned on a studio stage. The host announces the start of another Kymus livestream. Leader of the War Machine, they are about to show him defeating a group of black werewolves. In the ruins, the leader asks his guildmates not to. There are 1 million viewers watching them, proving that War Machine is the strongest there. Kymus finishes his speech and says they will win this battle and blah blah blah. The guild is about to face creatures capable of wiping out an entire small kingdom, and it could be the first to complete the Black Werewolf Conquest quest, one of the toughest with the sword pointing the way. Kymus announces the attack, and the battle between War Machine and Black Werewolves begins. The next day, Axe is walking through the sands of the Desert of Forgetfulness. Well, actually he ended up there somewhat aimlessly, so he doesn't even know if there will be food until he sees a baby desert scorpion walking, indicating there might be adults around. Maybe one of these breaded would be a good dish to start his mukbang. The adventurer grabs his sword, ready to slice the poor little creature. And he does, which would leave PETA in shock. With a piece of the monster in hand, he prepares to cook. Praying that the taste is better than the appearance now, with the ingredient ready, it's time to use his culinary skills, and the adventurer uses divine cooking, making the poor scorpion almost look like a chicken nugget. Axe grabs the piece and tries it. The divine palate detects the taste of ultra-processed food, immunizing him from the desert heat. He happily eats his scorpion nugget, finding it better than expected. Knowing how tasty it turned out, he remembers DD and decides to share the snack with him. From the summoning circle, the little dragon appears, who wastes no time and flies towards him. Axe offers him a piece. After all, they need energy to gather more ingredients, and DD nods. Suddenly, the ground beneath them begins to collapse. With no time to react, Axe ends up falling into the hole. They have fallen into a trap. Landing like a cat, he now finds himself surrounded by desert scorpions already irritated. He wastes no time drawing his sword, ready to defeat them. He just didn't expect to get stung in the back, which hits him squarely. What cowardice. The sand where he fell is so muddy that he can barely move his feet, making dodging difficult. But things can get worse. He is now bleeding. Seeing his companion in danger, DD springs into action. Axe panics, seeing him grab one of the creatures by the tail. They need to get out of there first. While the little dragon slams it to the ground with force, he tries to think of how they'll escape this. However, another surprise sting is aimed at the adventurer, who manages to defend with the sword even with his feet sunk in the sand. The bleeding becomes intense, leaving him with anemia. Axe falls to his knees, with zero certainty if becoming undead now would solve this problem. Panting and desperate, he feels his strength slowly fading away. However, he knows that freaking out won't get him anywhere, so he stands up and tries to calm down. Focusing on one scorpion at a time is the best option at the moment. DD is terrified to see his battered companion preparing to attack with all his confidence. Axe reassures him and says today is not his day of defeat. Even battered and underpaid, our adventurer is determined to win this fight. One of the scorpions tries to attack him from behind again. However, Axe is already aware of this worn-out tactic. With no time for that, he simply cuts off the creature's stinger. The situation needs to be resolved quickly because of the bleeding. He looks at his companion fighting worriedly, not knowing what to do. DD is still standing, but somewhat wobbly, until something comes to the adventurer's mind. He remembers the little dragon's cry, which was able to scare off a high-level specter. Probably thinking himself a fool for forgetting this, Axe calls DD, who looks in his direction, waiting for a command. Like a Pokemon master, Axe points to the scorpions and orders DD to use roar, heading towards the creatures. The little dragon channels all his power and lets out a great roar, capable of leaving them confused with such cuteness. Axe is thrilled to see his plan worked, congratulating DD. He thinks it's best to take advantage of the scorpion's current state. With his sword in hand, he prepares to defeat each of them, and charges towards them using bear stance, leaving only pieces of desert scorpions on the ground. Looking to the side, he sees the muddy part where he fell and got his feet stuck. Seeing DD flying towards him, Axe picks him up and says he saved them now that the situation is resolved. It's time to get out of this dump. They then escape the trap with a leap, and the adventurer earns a reward for it, which is the least that should happen for everything he faced down there. But that's okay upon receiving the ancient gloves of the Royal Guard relic. He is very surprised the set of ancient relics not only provides better attributes than other items, but also has a special effect when used complete. However, you can count on one hand how many players have achieved such a feat. Today is his lucky day. He could even play the lottery. Extremely excited, Axe equips the new gloves and already feels great. He concludes that the rest of the set must be scattered across the desert. Determined to explore it, he calls his companion and they set off in search of the other items. The next day, Axe is equipped with his new set. It may not be a Gucci, but it's the best armor for his level. After this quest, he decides to let DD rest and search for ingredients alone. Now that he's got the complete outfit, it shouldn't take long to catch more scorpions. And indeed, in an hour, he managed to catch enough to feed about 30 families. The adventurer takes off his helmet and prepares to start his first live stream, called Axe's Monster Mukbang. After choosing the name, he presses the button, and the live stream begins. Still shy, he introduces himself to his small audience, who don't seem very interested. Well, the beginning is always more complicated, so it's better not to worry too much about it. Continuing, Axe introduces his monster mukbang and shows the desert scorpion parts he will use today. However, upon reading the skeptical comments, he decides to prove that this is not clickbait, and eats a piece of one of the legs that was in the bucket. It must be because of the divine palate, but he actually finds this raw creature quite tasty. Now they can't say it's clickbait. After showing what he's made of, he finishes eating so he can cook the shell. Thanks to this, the audience keeps growing, reaching 10,000 viewers. Even he can't believe his views have increased so quickly, and the gold donations start coming in too, leaving him astonished at this rate. He'll be swimming in money like Scrooge McDuck. Axe thanks for the donations and promises to try to make the best streaming channel possible. And to show his gratitude, he decides to eat a raw scorpion shell. I just hope he has some medicine nearby at the company. The developer Tigelinia is watching the War Machine livestream, until he hears laughter, leaving him confused. There was nothing funny happening on it now. As he gets up, Tapatino and two other colleagues comment about a guy eating something. Tigelinia goes over to the three to find out what they're watching. Coming across our protagonist's mukbang livestream, he can't believe it. They prefer watching someone eat over an epic guild battle. Tapatino even agrees that watching her fight is fun, but this is on another level. Still in disbelief, Tigelinia says a livestream like this shouldn't even have 100 viewers. However, his colleague counters by saying there are actually 100,000. Shocking the skeptical developer immensely. Who would have thought the greatest commander of Rin Online would resurface like this after the humiliation he suffered? Upon hearing this, Tigelinia is surprised by such information, and now understands how the protagonist gained so much attention. Tapatino asks how many viewers the War Machine livestream has. He responds that it has 3 million, but it should reach 9 million soon. Seeing Axe grow quickly even on his first day, Tapatino is starting to doubt that. Back in the Desert of Forgetfulness, our adventurer continues full steam ahead with 500,000 viewers. He never imagined making so much money in such a short time. This excites him and makes him ready to close the gap between him and the War Machine. Suddenly, a gust of wind lifts the desert sand. He starts coughing and hopes it's not a storm that will ruin his food. Seeing that the sand won't stop rising anytime soon, he decides to stop the live stream for now. However, as he says goodbye, he doesn't notice the comments warning that there's something behind him. He only understands the message when he hears a loud noise. He looks back, startled, believing he attracted some monster because of the food, but he didn't expect to come face to face with a sand giant with his helmet equipped. Axe apologizes for needing to stop the mukbang, and prepares to defeat the monster that interrupted his livestream. Now, It's the perfect chance to show he's not just a monster eater. Look at the genius seeing that hell lose, he ends the live so viewers either feel sorry for him, or underestimate him. With this crazy idea in mind, Axe charges at the sand giant. He delivers his first blow to the creature's face, then hits another on the head, feeling the resistance of this tough nut. However, the sand gusts are making things difficult for him, so Axe decides to switch his sword for a bow. If it's going to be like this, better resort to long-distance attacks. 3 arrows are launched at the monster, and they all seem to hit it squarely. Axe lands on the ground, believing he dealt significant damage. However, a yellow glimmer can be seen amidst the cloud of smoke that forms suddenly. The sand giant emerges ready to land a punch, which is defended by the adventurer's shield, but not even the shield of Kalshumar is enough to absorb all that damage, and Axe is thrown far away due to the impact. The attack from this giant is more powerful than he imagined. The fight has barely started, and he's already battered and breathless. He gets up, puts away his bow, and glares furiously, seeing he didn't deal any damage to it. Against such a strong monster, he doesn't doubt he'll need to use bear stance and DD, but he still wants to try to defeat it alone. Now with the sword in hand, he prepares his next attack, ready to put all his power into this fight until he sees this pile of sand fall. The adventurer leaps towards the giant and strikes it on the head with all his might. However, it doesn't even seem to tickle the creature, which counterattacks with its fist, hitting Axe squarely. Quickly, it hits him again with another punch, making Axe realize he's not as strong as he thought. He needs to learn to be more humble, man. With this last blow, he's thrown forcefully away. Once again, the comments from his viewers try to motivate him to continue, but it's in vain. Axe was defeated, and with that, the live stream is about to end. However, before that happens, the Death Negator ability is activated, making the adventurer revive as an undead. He begins to rise amidst the smoke, noticing that the sandstorm is what makes the giant invincible. In other words, he needs to get rid of those grains in his shoe first. Axe removes his helmet, revealing his new morbid appearance, and prepares for the real fight. The sand giant throws another punch towards our adventurer, who manages to dodge, causing it to hit the ground. The monster's slowness helps him a lot, but it doesn't solve the storm problem. He needs to attack it from behind the storm if he wants to defeat it. The weather in the world of Fate is as spontaneous as a baby dirtying its diapers. This means that this sandstorm won't last forever, so it's only fair to use the weather forecast to know when it will stop. Just needs to wait a little bit. The monster tries to land another punch on the adventurer but misses, and the fight continues like this. The sand giant tries to punch, and Axe manages to dodge. After all, he knows he'll be in trouble if he's hit by any of those. 2 hours of dodging punches later, the storm finally begins to subside. The monster prepares to hit the ground with both fists together, but Axe manages to dodge again with a jump. Seeing this, the sand giant looks up, searching for him, and finds the adventurer staring at him, who asks if he's having fun, making him tense. The bear stance is activated. The adventurer propels himself forward and raises his sword to attack, landing a blow on the monster's neck. Several strikes are made against it, leaving it more sliced than sashimi, except sandy because it crumbled completely and turned into crumbs. Serves it right, no one told it to interrupt others' mukbang. To his surprise, he was the first player to defeat a guardian of the ancient kingdom of fate. His level increased about 3 times, he gained a title, and his fame rose. He hasn't learned anything about it yet, so he decides to read the achievement to find some insight. The title, Explorer of the Ancient Kingdom, doesn't give bonuses, nor does it clarify much, leaving him disappointed and confused about the ruined stigma part. The quest diary of the Guardian of the Ancient Kingdom appears, possibly the solution to the problem. He then picks up the notebook and decides to read it. However, he doesn't understand what's written, already regretting stopping at the first lesson on Duolingo. Well, he already has an idea of who to seek to decipher this. The great sage Seorus, the master of all knowledge in the world of fate, and who even taught many things to the king of gastronomy years ago. Since the two are connected somehow, he might get a recipe from him, but Axe has no idea where to find him. The only way is to wait for the guy to appear in front of him. Taking a look at his and DDS attributes, he sees that both are good. He then walks aimlessly through the desert, but confident that he will find clues about Seorus. Going to the Fate office, the protagonist's views shock the developer Tijalinja. His live stream managed to surpass War Machines in the last 2 minutes. Knowing it will be a hot topic, he can hardly wait to see the guild's reaction. Already at the guild's headquarters, Kaimus is watching the news about the new streamers. The leader is the big topic of the moment thanks to his successful raid. However, the reporter says there's a new streamer who just arrived and is already making noise, and Axe appears in second place on the off-stream list, making the leader turn off the screen. Kaimus believes it's the former guild leader, but Diesel doesn't think the same. Even so, he recognizes that playstyle, so it can't be mere coincidence despite being confident about where they are. He tells his vice leaders to dedicate themselves even more to the guild. Diesel just confirms. A bit apprehensive. Meanwhile, Sorceress is thoughtful about Axe's return, because she believes he came back to take revenge on them. Speaking of him, the adventurer, no longer a zombie, walks through the forest of ancient trees, which is as dark as a street without public lighting. Suddenly, a creature jumps in his path a few meters away. It's a deer with a very angry face, but Axe wonders if it has tasty meat. The deer of the forest of ancient trees charges towards him, ready to make a thrust with its antlers. Dodging the attack, Axe feels there's magic coming from the animal. Excited by this discovery, he prepares for another fight, which, in the end, didn't earn him anything prestigious, except for a mutant deer meat. He takes the piece and decides to cook it with divine cooking ready for consumption. Axe tries the meat. The divine palate detects the taste of horn, giving him more speed and intelligence. Besides the ability to connect with nature, Axe hears whispers and murmurs behind him, and encounters a strange tree that doesn't seem very happy with his presence. Perhaps eating meat of dubious origin wasn't a good idea. Our adventurer stands before the talking tree, which asks if he understood its words. In short, it wants help to get rid of an evil energy that appeared out of nowhere. The heart of the forest is where the energy necessary for the ancient trees to live is located. However, this bad thing is corrupting it and causing them pain. Axe strikes his fist on his armor and says he's ready to help them, already believing it will be an easy task. Before he goes, the ancient tree calls him to ask a favor to save the forest creatures that have been tormented by this bad energy. Then, the quest Save the Forest Children appears and is quickly accepted. After all, he needs the trust of the ancient trees to gain access to the heart. However, Axe is surprised to read that the creatures are brutally attacking each other, and he ponders for a few moments. He doesn't know whether to be sad about this or happy to have a personal meat buffet. The ancient tree notices his intentions, leaving him embarrassed for being discovered. He tries to smooth over the situation by showing he's willing to save the creatures too. The adventurer looks at the quest again, finding it curious that there are always a few bad apples hanging in a forest. As he walks, Axe concludes he will see some corrupted monsters attacking their kind. A fluffy sheep appears in the bushes, making him drool, but he quickly remembers he's not there to eat. The ancient tree warns that he is getting close. The adventurer stops walking when he sees something a few meters away, a fox about to attack another. It's not hard to tell which one is corrupted. Its black aura is quite different from the green one emanated by the normal fox, to the point of seeming threatening. Drawing his weapons, Axe asks if he just needs to defeat the creature, and is quickly answered with irony by the ancient tree. Even he can't believe he's obeying a passive-aggressive chunky plant. The adventurer takes a step toward the creature. Taking that response as a yes, he quickly advances to attack. Noticing movement, the fox turns its face to see what it is. For a moment, Axe wonders if the creature has magic, but soon forgets it, especially since he has a cool armor set and a dream. He prepares to strike with his shield, just wanting to finish this preliminary quest soon. But the corrupted fox manages to resist the attack, only showing that it's tougher than it seems. Without lowering his guard, Axe then plants his feet on the ground and propels himself toward the creature to deliver a sword strike, which doesn't end with just one. The corrupted fox is defeated with 3 blows. Aside from monsters like the sand giant, it's the first time he's faced one as strong as it. The adventurer gains the meat and hide of the animal he defeated. Seeing his strength, the ancient tree boasts about having a good eye for talent. More corrupted foxes appear to attack, and Axe continues defeating them, and collecting their meat and hide for later, of course, until he reaches the 10th, which tries to bite him from behind and fails miserably. For some reason, he thought there would only be 1 or 2. Another corrupted creature emerges from the bushes. However, Axe notices something different about it as it approaches. This fox is infected with rabies, which makes him a bit worried. If they had warned him, he would have taken a rabies shot beforehand. Seeing that contracting rabies doesn't seem cool, he raises his sword for a final blow. Axe uses bear stance and strikes the ground forcefully. Free from a disease, our adventurer worries about the monster's dark magic even though it's powerful. Using it in Fate is like asking to be lynched. Believe it, his image is more negative than a freezer's temperature. That's why he wonders if there are dark wizards behind what's affecting the forest. The quest Save the Forest Children is completed, and the ancient tree thanks Axe, who didn't think it would be that difficult. With the mission completed, it's time to go to the source of the problem and end it. The quest Purify the Forest of the Ancient Trees is then accepted. What excites Axe isn't the reward, but the loot he might get on this journey. However, if the corrupted monsters were already difficult, imagine what made them that way. The ancient tree then guides him to the heart of the forest. They arrive at the location, a tall trunk in the middle of a vegetationless environment. Initially, Axe feels confused by the familiar sensation he experiences upon stepping in, but he soon realizes that the entrance of the place is identical to the dungeon in Terre Mansion. This means that the boss here must be the source of the evil energy. He is very happy to have found another dungeon to explore. The one in Terre Mansion was a bit disappointing, as it only gave XP and a bunch of sticks. This one promises more, but he will need to be extra cautious because of the dark magic users. The dungeon's enemies are much more complicated, and Axe knows this. He will need the bear stance, but there are still 13 hours left before he can use it again. To avoid idling, he decides to log out of the game for a bit to check the results of his first stream. Not to mention, it was time to breathe some real fresh air before leaving. He asks the ancient tree to guard the entrance, so no one enters the dungeon, and asks if he requested any more help. But she says everyone was scared when they heard her. Content with the chance that no one will show up there, he eats some fox meat and logs out. Outside the game, the diving capsule opens. The protagonist opens his eyes, happy to have a dungeon right in front of him, especially since they are extremely valuable for large guilds. And now he has one just for himself. He gets up from the capsule and stretches nicely. Then he lies down on the bed and starts researching his first live stream. In the game's app, he clicks on the ranking option, and is soon surprised by what he sees. Even sitting up, suddenly his first live stream reached 5,328,000 viewers and 10,050 gold in donations. It's hard to tell how many fried chickens that equals, but it's about 42,000. A live stream of a nobody with a bucket full of chopped scorpions beside him, tasting the pieces as if they were the most delicious thing in the world, and still interacting with people. Really, it's hard to understand why so many people liked it. At a random school, a red-haired student hurries his friend, so they don't miss the bus. Seeing the black-haired one distracted on his phone, he decides to check what he was watching. Axe appears on the screen, and the redhead asks if he is a ranker on another device. A video shows the sand giant appearing on the livestream. A blonde guy looks at it incredulously and without reaction until he sees his more than 500,000 views, making him let out a scream. He just forgot he's in the middle of a restaurant. While apologizing embarrassedly, two men enter the place talking about Axe. One of them says he's trying to find him before he becomes too much of a star, but hasn't succeeded yet. The blonde guy, or rather Dallas, is happy to hear this, seeing his friend becoming popular, to the point of being on the big screens of the Mazy Inc. Building at the X Broadcasting Agency, employees are working hard to contact him, but none of them are having any luck, including junior writer SEO Yu Young. She probably doesn't even remember how many scoldings she's received from the boss by now. However, it's not her fault if no Fate player knows Axe, even not knowing him. SEO Yu Young finds his face strangely familiar. Meanwhile, the protagonist enjoys his first moments of fame lying on the bed. Back in the world of Fate, our adventurer wastes no time and summons DD. With the little dragon on his shoulder, he asks how it's doing, and it just lets out a QQ prepared. Both descend to the underground of the ancient tree dungeon right on the first level. Axe notices it's infected by something, which seems to worsen with each step taken. Well, with these luminous roots, at least he won't need a torch. Suddenly, a deer similar to the one he saw in the forest appears. It also has a magical aura, although it doesn't seem particularly special. However, he notices its energy is different. Before he can do anything, the creature launches a magical attack in his direction, and stares at him full of hatred in its heart. Axe finds the deer's attitude quite rude, as it could have started with a conversation. The Bear Stance ability is activated, which makes the creature a bit tense. Time is short and he needs this buff to clear the dungeon. With his sword, he charges towards the deer, which must be rethinking its choices at the moment. Axe swings his weapon, creating a cutting ray, which splits the poor animal in half and leaves a huge trail on the ground. Perhaps using Bear Stance was a bit too much, but that's okay, because the deer's friends have arrived with refreshments. At least he won't need to go looking for the creatures since they also use dark magic. Axe concludes their fighting styles must be the same. With this in mind, he and DD advance against the deer, which are defeated one by one, thus clearing the first floor of the dungeon. The Bear Stance consumes a lot of stamina, so Axe decides to slow down from now on. From the creatures, he obtains spiritual deer meat, which increases intelligence by 1. Upon reading its description, he concludes that any mage would go crazy over this item, because they are beings that use intelligence to strengthen their attacks. In other words, if he eats this meat, he will become a magic knight, and if the game gave this opportunity, it's best to seize it while he can. 9 levels later, Axe is fighting more spiritual deer, which are easily sliced by him. The wave of creatures seems endless, so he decides to take a break to catch his breath. Axe removes his helmet, which must be reeking from all the sweat, and prepares while planning how to do a mukbang in the next dungeon he visits. With the spiritual deer meat in hand, he uses divine cooking to prepare it, making a succulent grilled steak. Seeing DD salivating, he asks to wait a bit. With the food served in small bowls, they both take their first bites. Its juiciness, fruit juice flavor, and texture leave Axe impressed and DD satisfied. The divine taste detects this flavor, increasing his maximum mana and intelligence. It's not very strong yet, but he will have the same power as a mage in no time. He also gains buffs of nature connection, magic damage, and mana absorption. The duo's break is interrupted by a voice behind them asking for help. Axe and DD turn around and see a green glowing orb claiming to be the forest spirits. With great difficulty, they say their bodies and minds are being controlled. The runestone energizing this place is becoming increasingly contaminated. The adventurer is surprised to hear this, already imagining the danger it might represent. There are few runestones scattered across Fate, with this forest being one of them. They purify the regions where they are and maintain the world's balance. The spirits say the place will become a devastated and incurable land if nothing is done. Axe asks if the stone was intentionally contaminated, and they confirm. But before they could warn him, the green orb starts to crack and then bursts. Heavy footsteps are heard from behind the duo, and they face an anthropomorphic monster which roars at them. Axe draws his sword and tells DD to get ready to finish it off. They'll just need to do a dungeon speedrun before their buff runs out. On level 35 of the dungeon, our adventurer manages to reach the heart of the forest. The duo passes through a large door and begins walking down a stone corridor. He sees the runestone there, a large red crystal floating in the center of the room. However, he also notices someone in a hood nearby, probably the culprit of all this. The adventurer tells DD to stay out of this fight, and he agrees with a maniacal smile on his face. The hooded man turns towards him. Axe quickly advances on this guy, already aiming for the weak spot of every humanoid monster, but is surprised to see him narrowly dodge his attack. Then he quickly delivers another blow against the hooded man, hitting him this time injured on the side of his body. The enemy backs away and stares at the adventurer, who does the same after finishing his action. The hooded man begins to utter phrases in an ancient language, which Axe obviously doesn't understand. A red energy ball begins to form in his hand. He then advances on the adventurer, about to hit him with his red Rasengan. But Axe narrowly dodges, surprised not to see him fighting with a melee weapon. The adventurer takes advantage of the hooded man's sudden approach, and uses his sword to strike him, leaving him extremely wounded. As his last words, the man utters more unknown words, trying to mark him with the stigma of ruin, but the Ancient Realm Explorer title nullifies the effect. And so, the Ancient Tree Dungeon was completed. In theory, this boss was supposed to be strong, as Axe leveled up about 5 times in this endeavor. The runestone, or rather the heart of the ancient tree forest, is purified, and the worshipper's ring, from which the evil energy comes, is acquired. Axe wonders if the diary quest is related to this item, and the hooded man, and if he needs to end something related to the end of the world of Fate. His idea was just to do the class quests, but the story is getting bigger and bigger. The game seems to guide him in a certain way, especially with that title that nullified the curse. Everything suggests that his mission is tied to a grand conspiracy. What a headache. Go get your prize already, man. Back in the forest, Axe reports the mission's success to the ancient tree, which thanks him, thus completing the quest purify the ancient tree forest. The adventurer bids farewell, already heading south, but is called again. He is asked about his hunger, and simply responds that he wouldn't like to face the ancient trees. Laughing at his honesty, she says it's been a long time since she saw someone so amusing. Axe and Didi say goodbye to her once more. However, the ancient tree calls them as its roots emerge from the ground and the earth trembles, not understanding what's happening. He is frightened by the earthquake. Looking up, he encounters a gigantic being formed by thick roots. She wanted to show them her true form before they left. She says the ancient trees are eternally grateful, and that he can return if he needs help. She extends one of her roots, forming a hand to greet him. The adventurer thanks her and accepts her handshake. Finally, he and Didi wave goodbye to the ancient tree, who wishes them a safe journey. The ancient tree just watches them from afar, imagining they are capable of something. Next stop, the tropical forest in the south. At the X-Broadcasting office, Seo Yuyung is still searching for our protagonist. Her desperation is such that she's even offering a reward for information about him. Suddenly her boss appears behind her and asks how she's doing. She is startled to hear him. The last thing she wanted was to see this jerk's face. Hesitantly, she replies that she's still looking, which doesn't please him at all. Furious, he bombards her with rhetorical questions. Seo Yuyung feels embarrassed and says she's trying her best at work, but trying isn't synonymous with results, and her boss wants the latter by yesterday. Out of patience, he orders the writer to deliver the report by the end of the week, and leaves the office grumbling about her incompetence. Seeing him far away, she calls him a micromanaging jerk for not even considering her effort. Her options are limited, and asking the game team for personal information seems unethical. Until she thought of something, using live donations to get closer to Axe and thus ask questions not just for work but also to find out how he ended up there. Seo Yuyung needs to satisfy this curiosity, one way or another. Back in Fate, Axe and DD are practically crawling through the tropical forest. The adventurer hopes for a patch update there because, my god, it's a true outdoor sauna, the perfect biome to deter any player. The deadly heat and humidity of the place were designed to mimic reality. No wonder everyone avoids stepping there. Axe decides to take off all his armor for now before he cooks inside it. However, upon touching a bush, his hand brushes against a chameleon snake. Tries to strike at the adventurer, but DD is quicker and hits it with a headbutt. Seeing it fall to the ground, Axe grabs his sword and finishes off the animal. He was lucky not to be bitten, as he doesn't think sucking out the venom would save him. Checking his attributes, he notices his basic attack levels are quite high. Being 50 stronger now, perhaps the creatures won't be able to stop his blows anymore. Axe then has a crazy idea: focus 100 on mastering basic attacks. However, before exploring the forest, it's lunchtime. With all the excitement in the world, he shouts, "Divine taste." He starts cooking the creature using divine cooking. And voila! A snake skewer, perfect for selling on the beach. Axe and DD savor this meal with gusto. The divine taste detects the flavor of the venomous friend, giving him the snake's mutability. Really? Even poop must taste good to this guy with this ability. He stands up and stretches his arms, feeling the positive effects of the snake doing him good. The muggy weather will no longer be a problem, so it's time to boost his attack levels. Axe grabs his bow and asks if DD is ready, who quickly confirms his proficiency with it is still low, so he decides to start with easy targets. He runs through the forest, knowing there are no other players to compete for XP, until he encounters a triceratops and marks it as his first hunt. The adventurer prepares his bow and shoots at the creature, which is even hit by the arrow, but obviously doesn't fall because the weapon is still weak. Then more shots are fired at the beast until it is defeated. If Axe existed in the dinosaur era, the meteor would be the least of their problems. With his bow a bit stronger, his confidence in mastering the forest is sky high, and he proclaims that all the monsters, meats, and hides there belong to him. Axe believes he will be one step closer to the war machine after clearing this unexplored area. Suddenly, two monsters appear in front of him. Time to channel Legolas amidst the forest. Our adventurer continues his hunt for items and XP. Like a true Katniss in underwear, Axe hits his arrows on anything that moves. His collection of meats and hides only grows, and his bow is becoming increasingly precise. The guilds would go crazy if they saw him mastering this hunting spot. More creatures approach and more arrows are prepared. It's time to level up. The adventurer emerges from the foliage, exuding a killer aura. There are two dinosaurs just ahead. He just wants to stick a little arrow in their bellies. But the poor creatures just want this maniac to leave them alone. And they run away terrified, trying to escape a new mass extinction. However, Axe is faster and soon runs alongside them, scaring them. Seeing them pick up the pace, he does the same and even jokingly asks if they're late. Upon hearing the desperate cry of the Triceratops, the adventurer prepares his bow and hits an arrow on the poor thing while the other monsters escape. With the survivors fleeing, Axe decides to stop his hunt. For today the bow's accuracy is good, and he believes he will defeat everything that walks. In a few days the problem will be reaching the flying creatures. However, he already has a solution: orange, round, and fluffy. More specifically, seeing DD bored, he says he has an activity for him to stretch his wings. The little dragon gets excited and quickly nods like a Pokemon master. Axe then sends him to attack anything that flies, and his little companion goes in search of a target. Even though he's young, DD is still a freaking dragon, so it's all good. A few meters up, a pterodactyl is flying with nothing to do. Almost fainting from boredom, he spots a little orange being in the sky. The fake dinosaur chuckles, believing it to be an easy prey. Using his claws, he advances on DD and manages to grab his wings. Chuckling again, he just didn't expect this action to make the little dragon extremely furious. Seeing the mess he made, he lets him go. However, it's even possible to see a dark aura emanating from DD, making him shiver all over and try to back away in fear. The little dragon quickly advances on the pterodactyl, who panics upon seeing an orange ball approaching him. DD headbutts his belly with all the fury a 4-kilo being would have, knocking out the creature and possibly getting a bump on his head. Before it falls, he grabs the pterodactyl by the scruff and carries it back to the adventurer, who is impressed with the size of the catch DD managed. Axe congratulates him and realizes he won't need to worry about his companion. Knowing he needs a Tyrannosaurus to conquer the forest, he decides to search further south. By now, the creatures are hiding at the slightest step the duo takes. Probably because Axe is high level and DD has scared off the flying monsters. Well, he's leveled up enough here, so better find a Tyrannosaurus and get out of there. After a long walk, both are surprised by what they see as they emerge from the bushes. A village is a few meters away, something rare to find. Axe didn't expect to find one here, as he hadn't seen a single person all this time. Finally, a place to rest in the middle of this jungle. There are so many possibilities of what to do inside, like researching the Tyrannosaurus and even streaming. He bids farewell to DD, saying he will rest a bit in the village, and the little dragon exits the scene. Axe decides to learn a bit more about the local NPCs before going, praying they aren't too hostile, which doesn't seem to be the case given the skull in the background. Perhaps cannibal holocaust too. Zero is coming at this moment. Our adventurer is studying how to enter the Singhar people's village. Besides the frequent patrols, the main gate guards are always rotating. The fear of them thinking Axe is an enemy is great, but he urgently needs to empty his inventory. Suddenly, a cart approaches the entrance and is soon stopped by the guards. The merchant greets them and says he has some magnificent and refined items for the village. He questions the stricter security today, but they just tell him to enter and behave. Without wasting time, the man passes through the gates. Axe watches the scene from afar and starts devising his plan: sneak into the village and see what items they need to then sell them to them. He might even get quests to further increase his affinity with the villagers. In the process, he can gather information about the Tyrannosaurus he needs to hunt. That's it, time to eat a chameleon snake meat and become Solid Snake. The invisibility effect lasts an hour, but can end sooner with a simple contact. Axe then devours the poor animal, and its special effect is activated. On tiptoe, he sneaks between the guards, who seem like two statues. Even without seeing him, the adventurer is not sure if they can still hear him. He just didn't expect that one of them would have the sense of smell of a dog trained to find illicit things. Upon hearing him ask if his colleague smelled a strange odor, Axe freezes immediately. The sniffing guard walks in his direction, saying that something seems to have passed by them. Now closer to the adventurer, he says the smell seemed a bit like blood, but the other just tells him to return to his position, which he does shortly after. While the two are arguing, Axe snaps out of his initial shock and continues on his way. The care to not be discovered will need to be even greater. Entering the village, he notices some movement in the distance, and he spots some NPCs gathered. They are all around the grave of the Singhar people's chief, so the atmosphere is purely that of a funeral. The cry of a young warrior kneeling echoes through the place. Ilua cries in front of her father's grave, not knowing how to move forward, while the other villagers, some injured, watch the scene in silence and tears. The village's sub-chief tries to comfort her and says he will seek revenge for what happened, but she confronts him, saying this was the result of his cowardice in front of the Tyrannosaurus, and that he doesn't deserve the position given to him because he's nothing but useless. Ilua then runs away from the place. Ignoring her mother's call, the woman apologizes to the sub-chief, but he doesn't disagree with the young woman's attitude, clearly blaming himself for what happened to the chief. He orders the warriors to go to the military tent to plan the next attack. Axe, who observes everything from afar, becomes curious upon hearing them mention the Tyrannosaurus. As he still needs information, he decides to spy on the meeting to try to obtain it. Every piece of data about the forest is precious, especially since almost no player knows it well. He goes to the tent, not wanting to miss this chance. Upon getting close, he already hears the current leader's voice shouting that they need to defend their home. The warriors are seated at the table with the sub-chief at one end without the chief. None of them are confident they will be able to defeat the Tyrannosaurus, because they believe they are weaker than it, but this attitude makes the leader angry, and he states they must use the incident to strengthen themselves and together take their revenge. The adventurer hears everything, but is somewhat confused by the last part. However, he wasn't the only one spying on them. When his shoulder is bumped, the invisibility effect is deactivated, and an angry Ilua demands he identify himself while drawing her sword. On his knees, Axe becomes tense and unresponsive, making her even more impatient. However, everything worsens when he sees the blade near his neck, and the young woman still questioning him. I hope our James Bond measures his words, as not even the Death Negator will get him out of this. With all this shouting, it's obvious the people in the tent would be scared and confused. Ilua asks them to leave quickly, still pointing the sword at our adventurer. Axe tries to explain the situation and asks to be released, but she just tells him to shut up and asks how he managed to enter the village. At the same time, the young woman feels something, a strange and unusual aura emanating from him. Everyone who was in the tent comes out to see what's happening, and they find Axe on all fours while Ilua steps on him and points the sword at him. Believing him to be a spy, the sub-chief orders the guards to arrest him. Despair hit the adventurer hard. Now Ilua hears her name being called from afar and gives Axe one last stomp before heading towards her mother. Seeing her concern, she just says there's no need to worry because she's a warrior. The woman says she knows that, but the young woman is all she has left now. Ilua yells for her mother to stop mentioning her father and turns her back on her after a few quiet seconds, stating she would go hunting in the forest. However, the young woman stops midway and looks back, observing the adventurer being dragged by the guards. She can't understand why someone so strong thought it better to hide in the underground prison. Axe is in a cell without equipment and chances to escape. The only way is by making friends with some NPC, which will be a bit complicated. Being imprisoned while the war machine strengthens was not in his plans. His monologue is interrupted by the arrival of Ilua, who stops in front of his cell. Axe immediately recognizes her, probably as the girl who stomped his, but he asks what she wants, and she says she'd like to know his intentions in the village. The adventurer simply replies that he's trying to hunt a Tyrannosaurus. Ilua is surprised as the guy came from afar just for that. Axe then admits to being a food enthusiast and having already tasted almost everything in the forest. Obviously she doesn't believe it, but he doesn't care. Regardless, Ilua becomes interested in his desire to hunt a Tyrannosaurus. Therefore, she makes the following proposal to Axe: defeat the creature in exchange for his freedom. And the adventurer quickly accepts without a second thought. Ilua says he will become a statistic too if he continues with such presumptuous talk. Axe asks for information about the beast, proposing to share what he finds in it after defeating it. She agrees and tells him to wait while she gets him out of the cell, happy to be leaving. He asks if he will have his equipment returned, but the young woman replies that she's not sure. As they are in the sub-chief's tent, getting them back will be difficult, especially since security has been reinforced now. The most she can offer is basic armor, as the agreement is only between the two of them. Axe asks why she trusts him. Illua responds that she can see a special power within him, a strong and virtuous aura, and she explains that she inherited this ability from her father. That's why she has a sense of how powerful Axe is. He apologizes for bringing up this sensitive topic, but the truth is, she really trusts her own ability, not him. After this melancholic talk, the young woman leaves to gather what's necessary for the mission. It wasn't so bad, but facing a Tyrannosaurus without his equipment is going to be tough. Since Axe will only have his base attributes, he'll have to keep using bear stance. Outside the prison, 2 guards are watching the entrance, eager for their shift to end soon. They spot someone approaching and find it strange, as it's already very late. One of them points his spear at the person and demands identification. She remains silent for a few seconds before lowering her hood, revealing herself to be Illua, who is about to pull off an unimaginable prank. When asked why she's there, the young woman says she came to deliver something at the sub-chief's request, and she gives them a basket containing purple fruits. Refusing food is almost a sin, so the guards quickly accept the offer. But this grape is like Snow White's apple, eat it and you sleep. Apologizing for this, Illua enters the prison to fetch our adventurer, and thus execute her revenge. Axe complains about her delay, and she says she needed to wait until it was dark enough. The young woman breaks the lock on the shackles with her blade, and returns his sword, along with a Singer battle uniform. Illua states that she only managed to get the weapon because it was very dark, so he shouldn't complain given the situation. Having it back is already good enough. Axe puts on the clothes he was lent, finding them quite light and comfortable. Not to mention they have very useful effects for enduring the forest and its monsters. Seeing him ready, Illua says she'll show him where he needs to go, and the two walk towards the exit. Along the way, the adventurer questions if they're just going to the creature without a plan, but she only says she'll explain when they get there, indicating it will be her way. Leaving the prison, they find the guards still asleep at the entrance. Axe asks how important it is to take down the monster, but Illua just tells him to hurry up. Then, he inquires if all this is for revenge for her father. She confirms and asks if the adventurer knows what it's like to lose someone, saying that the feeling of seeing someone you love disappear before your eyes is terrible. Axe asks if that's why she doesn't talk about it, despite the agreement they made. Illua is confused, as her father and defeating the Tyrannosaurus initially have no relation. Axe just lets it go, and she snubs him, saying he'll lower his guard once he hears it roar. At first, the adventurer doesn't understand, and the young woman explains. It's as if that sound freezes a person in place. From the description, he concludes it's a stun effect similar to DDS roar. Axe then asks if he should worry about anything else, and Illua says yes. Several things. Out of nowhere, a summoning circle appears in front of them, and a very hungry DD emerges from it. The young woman is startled and questions if he made a pact with a dragon. Well, it was a gift, so theoretically no. Illua says not to trust it. Besides being dangerous, it has the power of an entire nation. She knew Axe wasn't normal, but having a creature like that as a pet is madness. The adventurer reassures her, saying DD doesn't bite, and offers a treat to the little dragon, who happily accepts it immediately. Since it's late, he thinks it's better to rest there and start the hunt tomorrow. At night, Illua and Axe, with DD sleeping by their side, sit around the campfire. He breaks the deafening silence by asking about the chief again. With no choice, she tells him that a Tyrannosaurus attacked the village a day before he arrived. Specifically, the temple of the Sinhar people, where the spirits of ancestral gods are worshipped. On that day, everyone was gathered for another worship ceremony, except for Illua, who had not yet returned from her hunt, which worried her mother. The chief tried to reassure her, saying that their daughter is a true warrior. Without waiting any longer, he then announced the start of the ceremony, which was soon interrupted by the ground shaking and the sound of heavy footsteps coming from behind. Turning around, the villagers spotted a Tyrannosaurus among the forest trees, which let out its great roar. The chief ordered everyone to flee, saying he would keep it distracted in the meantime, and asked his wife to ensure the people's safety, but she hesitated to leave him. Preparing his fists to fight, he tried to reassure her and the sub-chief. The chief ordered the two to stop hesitating and get out of there. However, his right-hand man insisted he would stay until the end. Roaring once more, the Tyrannosaurus charged at the temple, and began chasing one of the villagers who ended up stumbling. Seeing him fall to the ground, the village chief ran to help him. With his ankle injured, the villager could only scream in pain, and the footsteps were already close. Because of this, he supported him on his shoulder so they could both escape. It was then that the sub-chief shouted loudly, "Behind you, chief!" and he turned his face back, coming face to face with the Tyrannosaurus about to catch them. Desperately, the chief quickly pushed the injured villager away, sacrificing himself to protect him from being bitten. At that moment, Ilua arrived at the temple, not understanding what was happening, and only had time to see her father between the monster's teeth. The last thing Ilua expected was to see her father being brutally attacked like that. The Tyrannosaurus let the chief's body fall to the ground, right in front of his daughter and his right-hand man, who screamed desperately for him. With its prey defeated, the creature let out a roar of satisfaction. For a few moments, Ilua couldn't speak, only stare at her father's lifeless body, until her despair turned into pure rage, wishing to end this monster. She drew her sword to attack the creature which was about to advance. However, the sub-chief ran towards her to prevent another tragedy. Ilua told the man to stay out of it, blaming him for what happened to her father, and he just apologized before striking her neck, leaving her unconscious. The sub-chief then carried her on his back to escape from there, because he knew it was a lost fight, and managed to flee the temple carrying her before the Tyrannosaurus could reach them. Ilua finishes the story, curled up in front of the campfire. Her sadness is immense, but the resentment and anger she feels towards the sub-chief are even greater. Despite feeling sympathetic, our adventurer doesn't have much to say, so he just chooses to ask her name. Ilua responds, and asks him the same question, to which he quickly says his name. Her only reaction was to repeat it while staring at the fire. Morning arrives and the quest hunt for the Tyrannosaurus appears for Axe, leaving him a bit confused with that. He understands that everything that happened so far was part of the script. In any case, he is more than ready to have a dinosaur barbecue. And it seems DD is the three set out in search of the creature, which is making Axe nervous. For some reason he asks if they are heading in the right direction, and Ilua confirms, saying it's a bit far, and so they follow the path to the monster's habitat. Now in the bushes, they spot the Sinhar warriors in the distance waiting for the creature. Looking skeptically at the spears, Axe even questions if they will manage to tickle it. One of the men looks back, waiting for a command, and the sub-chief just waves his hand at him, who nods in response. Sometime later, a warrior emerges from the bushes. He announces that he managed to make the creature follow him, and that they should prepare, as it will soon be there. The sub-chief congratulates him and orders him to join his companions. His nervousness and fear are visible, but he believes his strategy will lead them to victory. While one group distracts the creature, another comes from behind and attacks, and so they take turns. The warriors are ready, just waiting for the signal to advance together. Heavy footsteps are heard and felt from afar, scaring the birds. The Tyrannosaurus doesn't take long to appear among the trees, and lets out its intimidating roar, making the Singer warriors look at it in terror from afar. Axe and DD watch tensely, realizing it's not just any field boss. Ilua was right, they haven't even gotten close to it, and they're already feeling the pressure. The sub-chief lowers his weapon for a moment, gathering the courage to initiate the attack, but soon lets out a shout to draw the creature's attention, which stares at him for a few seconds and quickly begins to charge at him. He shouts, "This is for the chief," and throws his spear with force. The spear is hurled forcefully towards the Tyrannosaurus, which is hit in the face. However, the weapon breaks in half as soon as it hits its snout. The attack seems to have no effect, frustrating the sub-chief. Seeing this happen, the other warriors despair, thinking themselves weaker. He orders everyone to calm down and continue with the plan, sending the decoy group to attack. Still afraid, they obey and try to distract the creature, which is ready to charge at them. However, it hears bushes rustling behind it and notices the presence of other warriors. As he raises his spear, the leader of the offensive group shouts to attack and throws his weapon forcefully, followed by his companions. However, the creature manages to defend itself from the rain of spears using its tail, surprising everyone, as they did not expect to be discovered. The Tyrannosaurus lets out an intimidating roar and uses stun, leaving all the Sinhar warriors paralyzed with fear, kneeling and unable to move. The sub-chief is terrified, realizing that strength alone is not enough to defeat this monster. The creature runs towards them, ready to devour them. Unable to defend himself, the sub-chief just accepts his end. However, he is surprised to hear Ilua's shouts telling them not to give up and encouraging them to keep fighting, until everyone sees the creature taking a precise kick to the face from someone. The sub-chief quickly recognizes it's our adventurer. They are stunned by the scene, watching him land a blow on it and even make it retreat. Axe asks Ilua to help the warriors get out of there. He is determined to take down the Tyrannosaurus alone. Ilua then appears with DD by her side to get them out of the area. The surprise attack confused the creature and cancelled the stun effect of its roar. Angry to see its meal freed, it turns its attention to the adventurer. Axe realizes he can defeat it by using its massive weight to his advantage. After all, the Tyrannosaurus may be big, but it's not too. He prepares to charge, imagining he can defeat it in the blink of an eye. And, with the spirit of Sonic the Hedgehog in his body, runs towards the creature. However, it lets out another intimidating roar, leaving him stunned. Besides being surprised it could use the effect so soon, that's when Axe understands that it uses this to compensate for its slowness. Seeing the adventurer paralyzed, the Tyrannosaurus advances to devour him. However, the character's redemption comes and the sub-chief manages to push him away, caught off guard. Axe only has time to hear him say "Hell, leave the rest to him," before seeing him brutally caught. Ilua is left speechless, seeing another person being attacked by this monster. The creature continues chewing the body as if it were a dog toy, while the other Singhar warriors watch the scene in complete shock. After finishing, the sub-chief is thrown into a random corner, and Ilua runs to assist him. In the arms of the tearful young woman, the wounded man apologizes for not saving her father. She just tells him to stop talking, disbelieving everything that's happening. As a request, he tells Ilua to be their new leader, and all Axe and Didi can hear are her desolate cries. The young woman's face is covered in tears. She desperately asks the adventurer to help the Singhar people. This request is enough to activate the bear stance and fill Axe with fury. Our adventurer faces the Tyrannosaurus with fire in his eyes. Both are face to face, ready to fight. The warriors help each other to escape while Ilua tries to aid the sub-chief. Axe watches the creature approach with heavy steps and lets out its roar again, which is nullified by the bear stance. But it hits the Singhar warriors and Didi. Ilua still cries while holding the sub-chief's body, which is very weak. Axe calls the Tyrannosaurus attention and asks if it's ready to be defeated. Both charge at each other. Restarting the combat, the creature lets out another roar, but Axe is unfazed and leaps towards it, which tries to bite him in the air. He easily dodges the attack with another jump, charges again and prepares to deliver a powerful kick, which soon lands squarely on the monster's face. Ilua and the warriors watch the fight impressed. Though a bit fearful, he faces the creature, probably wanting to see the damage he did to its mouth. With a bit of lag in its brain, it manages to recover. Axes quicker and charges with his sword in hand. This time, ready to end it. However, he is surprised by the monster's enormous tail. With no time to react, his body is hit squarely and thrown meters away. Everyone watches the scene worried and fearful for his life. The adventurer hits the ground with force and remains still for a few moments while the creature roars into the void. Recovered from the initial shock, Ilua orders her companions to flee at once. Then everyone starts to leave the area, with DD and some of them carrying the more injured ones. However, the creature notices the maid. One of the warriors looks back and is startled to see it approaching in desperation. He can only close his eyes and crouch to avoid being caught, but Axe quickly leaps in his direction. saying it's not over yet, and drives his sword into the Tyrannosaurus head. Bringing it down upon withdrawing the blade, he tells the creature to focus on him. Suddenly, it opens its eyes and stands up while letting out a roar of rage, seeing it recovering. Axe descends from its head before things get worse. The Tyrannosaurus seems to have even more energy than before. The adventurer notices physical changes happening to its body, making it stronger, and soon realizes this is its second attack phase. Well, with or without the famous juice, that doesn't matter to Axe. Both are face to face once again. Meanwhile, the sub-chief, severely injured, asks Illua to help in the fight. The young woman refuses to leave the wounded, but it's already too late for the man. He only tells her not to miss this opportunity for revenge, and closes his eyes forever while Illua's tears fall on his body. The Tyrannosaurus lets out a roar towards Axe and DD, who is now by his side. He prepares to attack and tells the little dragon to dodge at the last second. This creature doesn't stop roaring. I don't know how it has the throat for it. However, before anything happens, the young warrior strikes its face with her sword, surprising both the duo and the creature. She may be a little late, but she didn't arrive too late. The Tyrannosaurus prepares its next attack, this time concentrating some kind of energy. Meanwhile, our adventurer explains his attack plan to Illua. She worries about the possibility of him being stunned by the roar, but Axe asserts he won't be. As he's immune to it, a large ball of energy forms in the creature's mouth, which now aims at the three. Surprised and confused, the young woman asks what kind of attack this is, and the adventurer just tells her and DD to get out of there. As if it were Greyman, the creature fires at the three, who manage to escape. Axe looks back, surprised that it gained a new attack in the second phase. While fleeing the explosion, Illua asks if the plan continues, and Axe confirms. He asks DD to stay by her side to help her, and the little dragon quickly obeys. After the sudden scare, the adventurer prepares to put his plan into action. The Tyrannosaurus roars at him, and he shouts back with its attention focused on him. Axe advances quickly towards the creature. He makes a big leap, ready to attack it. The Tyrannosaurus even tries to bite him in the air, but its jaw is struck by his sword before it can. Without wasting time, Illua quickly approaches it from behind, shouting that it wasn't over yet, and strikes it on the nape, almost like a scene from Attack on Titan. With the creature distracted, she yells for Axe to act now. Then, he eats a piece of cave bear meat to boost his attack. The creature roars at Illua, about to charge at her. However, before that happens, the adventurer leaps towards it, and delivers his final blow to the Tyrannosaurus nape, which lets out another roar before starting to groan in pain, until it collapses to the ground, seemingly motionless. Shortly after, Axe lands safely. Illua watches the creature for a while, waiting for a possible reaction, just like the adventurer who doesn't want to tempt fate. But nothing happens, and the Tyrannosaurus hunt quest is completed. The young woman exclaims that the creature was defeated, that they had succeeded. The three look at each other with smiles on their faces, and Axe shouts, "We won!" in a group hug. He congratulates DD and Illua, who thanks them for helping her. However, she soon becomes sad looking at the fallen sub-chief's body. Remembering the losses she had, the adventurer tries to reassure her, saying his sacrifice wasn't in vain. Illua says everything would have been different if Seorus were there, which catches his attention. He questions her, wanting to know how she knows him and where he is, and the young woman returns the first question and claims to know the location of the Great Sage. It seems it won't just be Tyrannosaurus meat that Axe will gain today. Illua begins to tell her story to our adventurer, which starts 10 years ago. The young woman was injured and running through the forest, trying to escape something. Almost out of breath, she looked back before letting out a scream. Sometime later, a velociraptor seemed to be searching for something. He took a look there, a sniff here, until he found the trail of his prey, making him let out a roar. The creature watched the young woman from afar, frightened at being found. Illua tried to flee again until a branch appeared in front, causing her to trip and fall hard to the ground. Fallen and injured, she could only curse at that moment. Suddenly, she heard more footsteps approaching her. There was another velociraptor there, waiting for her arrival. Seeing herself surrounded, she realized their plan was to lure her to that place. Illua sat down, but felt her wound worsening more and more. At this rate, she was doomed. The velociraptors then advanced towards her, but all she could do was scream for help. The creatures were getting closer and closer, until flames began to emerge from the staff of someone mysterious. And they were directed at the velociraptors' heads on fire. Both ran away while a blond man watched them. This was Ilua's first encounter with Seoris after helping her. He asked if she knew of any herbs that treated poison. And the young woman said there were some around, but she could give him the ones she had in the village. Hearing this, the blond man asked to be taken there. Ilua agreed, as it was the least she could do after being saved by him. In the village, the chief thanked Seoris for helping his daughter in the forest. Eternally grateful, he asked if it was herbal antidotes he needed, and handed a box full of them to the blond man, who thanked him. Meanwhile, the chief's wife scolded the disobedient daughter, who retorted by saying there was nothing to do in that suffocating village. Her mother threatened to lock her up at home if she kept sneaking out, and she just agreed. Seeing the whole scene, Seoris said he could teach her many things when she was older. Very excited, Ilua said she would definitely seek him out, and he told her to obey her parents until then, as if advising her before leaving. He said to ask for him at the southern lighthouse when the time came. Ilua agreed and bid farewell to the blond man, who returned to the forest to continue his journey. End of the story. And I don't know how they managed to stay near the big creature's body for so long. The young woman says she's not sure if Seoris still lives at that lighthouse, but that Axe could cross the Great Plains to the south until reaching the coast to look for him. Being the master of knowledge, surely he knows more recipes than Gordon Ramsay. In the Singhar people's village, the villagers await the return of Ilua and our adventurer. Her mother is with her head down and hands together, praying for her daughter's safe return. Someone spots people approaching the entrance. One of the warriors notices it's them and announces that the young woman is alive, relieving the woman, who immediately stops her prayer and lifts her head. Axe, DD and Ilua, with the sub-chief's body in their arms, return safe and sound. Very happy, the young woman's mother calls her name, which she soon returns. She runs to her daughter and, stopping to catch her breath, sees there's not a scratch on her. Emotional, she asks if she knew how worried she was, and the young woman just retorts. The warriors congratulate her. Relieved and with tears in their eyes, Ilua interrupts the crying to introduce someone to everyone in the village. For without him, she wouldn't have come out alive. Thus, Axe is introduced as the hero who defeated the Tyrannosaurus. He even gets shy about it. How kawaii. Seeing his face, the woman recognizes him but admits they judged him wrongly. Then she and the villagers bow and thank him, making him a bit more nervous. The adventurer scratches his head, still embarrassed by all this. Even though it's a bit late, the woman invites him to stay as long as he needs. And Ilua reaffirms her mother's words, saying he's welcome in the village. Thus, Axe was recognized as a member of the Singhar people and participated in their funeral, which took place in the temple where only warriors are buried. Seeing the graves in front of him, he only hopes they won't need this place anymore in the future. After the funeral event, everyone gathers around the bonfire to celebrate the victory, and nothing like a good Tyrannosaurus barbecue for that. Axe prepares the meat divinely for the villagers, who can barely hold back their saliva from how fragrant it is. The food is served on skewers and everyone starts savoring it, including DD, who would deserve a piece even if he had done nothing. The next morning, the village gates are opened for Axe. Ilua wishes him a good journey and asks if he plans to return someday. He replies that he does and bids farewell. The young woman then says everyone will be waiting and gives him a unique item, a unique primitive flint containing the ancestral spirits of the Singhar people. The adventurer looks at the stone, confused. She says it's a gift, and Axe asks if it's okay to give him something so important. Ilua confirms, as he has done more than enough to deserve it, like saving an entire village from a giant carnivorous dinosaur. He then bids farewell to the villagers for real. They wish him a good journey and ask him to visit. Ilua watches him distance himself from the village, still seeing the special power he has, and she wonders how strong he will be when they meet again. Walking down the road, Axe and DD now head south, finally out of the tropical forest. He feels the fresh air entering his nostrils. With the wind in his hair, it's as if he's in a shampoo commercial. He reaches the Great Plains and can hardly wait to find Seoris. Amidst the lush plains, rabbits are living their lives in peace. One of them is even going to eat some grass there. However, another animal appears to disrupt this. A bulky, spot-free cheetah. This is classic natural selection in its purest state. Stealthily, the feline prepares to attack the poor white rabbit, until another living being jumps on it. Our adventurer strikes its head with an old flint, dealing it a critical blow. Seeing the cranial trauma he caused, he admits that Ilua's gift isn't so bad after all. It will be a great emergency weapon, especially with its high attributes. After collecting the items from this hunt, Axe decides to try the cheetah's meat. Then he takes it and gives it a good bite. The divine palate detects the taste of speed, dexterity, and evasion of the feline in the plains. It makes sense, as cheetahs are considered agile and fast animals. But that's when he realizes something. Now he'll be able to reach the southern coast by the end of the day. Without wasting time, Axe positions his feet and starts running across the plains, feeling as fast as Usain Bolt at the Olympics. He accelerates as much as he can, getting even faster. There's no way around it. This little recipe will soon be in his hands. Out of the plains, Axe tries to catch his breath, seeing that running double has its drawbacks. At least he managed to reach the border wall without a scratch. Now he just has to pass through it, and soon he'll be having tea with Seoris. At the entrance, a guard explains that the kingdoms of Arva and Ruyan have decided to increase surveillance, which makes it impossible for adventurers to pass at the moment. Completely out of the loop, Axe asks why this is happening. A player responds that it's because of the bandits who keep raiding the villages. Still confused, he questions what this has to do with the border. The guy explains that there are cases of adventurers attacking and even eliminating NPCs in those places, which is very strange, as having affinity with them is very important in Fate. Being a jerk to NPCs will only make them see you as an enemy. And another thing, doing this is asking to be sidelined in trades and various game mechanics. Even Axe can't understand why these troublemakers are doing this. The way is to find a solution to this big problem. The time he ate Chameleon Snake landed him in jail, so he forgets that idea. He notices one of the guards staring at him, and remembers something. More specifically, an item, the necklace with the Tear family crest on his neck. With it in view, maybe he won't be mistaken for a bandit and can cross. So, Axe moves through the crowd of adventurers, politely asking for permission, as he's not rude. The grumpy guard looks at him once more, until he notices the Tear family crest over his armor. Near the entrance, Axe asks if the item is enough to verify his identity. The officer kneels before him, recognizing him as a noble, and, with his colleagues kneeling too, says he will allow his passage right away. The guard greets him cordially, and introduces himself as the captain of the Ruyan Guard. Axe greets him back, somewhat shocked by the sudden change in behavior. The officers prepare to accompany him to the border to ensure his safety. But a guard with slicked back hair emerges from the gates and demands the necklace's authenticity, arrogantly stating that no one passes without his authorization. The captain is incredulous. An honorable family like the Tear would never risk their crest like that. However, the guard only orders Axe to show the item, saying he'll only confiscate it if it's fake, and threatens to deal with him if he doesn't hand over the necklace or pay to enter with gold. With only unintelligible grumbles as a response, the guard asks what he said. Axe just releases the horses, with zero patience to put up with another jerk. After glaring at the military, everyone falls silent. He tells them to get out of the way, as he's not in the mood to cause a ruckus there. The chief of the guard is thoughtful, observing the confidence of our hero. But, with a crazy look on his face, he challenges our hero to a fight. However, he says he'll let it slide this time, but questions if Axe is just showing off. Our hero is tempted to throw some punches at the NPC but doesn't want to worsen things with the NPCs. A soldier shouts, catching the officer's attention, saying he can't stand seeing him give money to thieves and support wrongdoers. The officer says it's a shame because he's been a good employee who worked hard, and questions if he can earn money to take care of his little sister in another job. The soldier remembers his beautiful sick sister, unable to do much for her. This makes him angry. The officer asks two soldiers which of them has been there the longest, but they say nothing. Seeing this, the corrupt officer complains that they are all innocent, even when trying to help. At this moment, a redhead approaches and asks if he can take their place. Confidently, he says he's the one the military wants and questions if they can ally. The officer says it's work and asks if they can follow any order. With a fifth-rate villain's laugh, he says, "Just give the order." Excited, the officer seals the contract and shouts for everyone to see the new head of security and the former corrupt chief. They are letting an intruder pass and question what he will do while smiling like an idiot. Irritated, the soldier says he can't take it anymore and draws his sword and says he will stop the bandit causing trouble at the border. The officer mocks him for barking without understanding the help he's getting. This makes the bandit start the fight while the soldier faces him. The swords clash in combat. The soldier feels the blow, and the bandit feels superior because they are only robbing users. Our hero decides to join the fight, surprising the troublemaker. Alex charges forward, and the bandit confidently says blocking him is child's play. The swords collide, but our hero breaks the redhead's weapon, wiping the smile off his face. And in a few seconds, he becomes just another in history. Alex mocks them, asking if he didn't control his own strength, leaving the officer incredulous that he took down the bandit so easily without using a skill. The soldier tells Alex not to get involved so he won't have problems, but he says he's already messed up. This makes the corrupt officer start laughing like a madman. Alex asks why he's laughing, and the officer offers half the profits if they join forces. Our hero is tempted by the idea, making everyone tense, but soon says he's not interested. The officer asks if he's crazy because there's a lot of money at stake and offers a 6-4 split. Alex asks if he thinks he can be bought with that pittance because he'll make more by arresting him. Irritated, the officer knew he shouldn't have trusted the bandits and decides to flee. He pulls the chains and questions if they thought he wouldn't have skills. And with the weapon given by the king, he will arrest everyone, and anyone against him is a criminal. However, someone tells him to stop. A soldier passes through the people and approaches. The guard asks if he is the commander of the 1st Division of the Luyan Army. Serious, the commander says he witnessed something interesting while patrolling. Trembling, the officer says it's a mistake and asks to let him explain. The commander doesn't want to hear excuses because he already knows everything and will punish him militarily. Afraid, the corrupt officer says it's not like that. However, the commander says nothing and just punches him in the face, throwing him away like a rag doll. Serious, the commander says dirtying his sword with a useless person disgusts him. The soldiers call for the general and bow. Shouting for Luyen, the general looks at the guard who challenged the corrupt officer and questions what he, the head of security, is doing and orders those two to be arrested. Alex is confused since even though they were weak, the general handled them easily, especially because that wasn't a common method and certainly that NPC has incredible skills. The officer throws his chains at the general, saying he won't obey him. However, the general just stares and, as if it were nothing, blocks the chains with his sword. This leaves the officer incredulous because that weapon given by the king was easily blocked. The general just gives a look, making the corrupt officer flee like a coward. Knowing he can't win and needs to escape from there, however, the general simply catches up and kicks him in the face, throwing him far away. After that, the commander lands like Spider-Man while the officer is unconscious. Staring into the void, he says that because he didn't behave, he hit harder but not too hard, and to stop fooling around. After a while, the bandits are arrested, and the general orders the border to be open. The head of security questions what to do with the thieves. The general says others will handle it and he just needs to focus on the mission. This makes the soldier grateful for everything, and after that, the commander leaves. The soldier says the border is open, and anyone who passes the basic inspection can go through. Everyone celebrates that they can finally enter. Luyan people pass by, and the guard asks our hero's destination. He says that because he helped, he will guide him to his destination. Alex asks about Seoris. The guard says he knows where he is. Alex thanks God because he is there to meet Seoris. The guard says he helps him by making medicine for his sister, and that's why he endured until now, and that he was letting everything pass and recently reported everything to the superiors. However, instead of investigating, they just labeled him as strange, and it seems that the high-ranking officials are involved in the bribes. The guard introduces himself as Kelvin, and they shake hands. The duo arrives at a castle near the sea. Kelvin says they are on the southernmost coast, and if he crosses the bridge, he will find Seoris. Alex thanks him because, thanks to him, he got there without any problems. Kelvin says that when he needs help, he just has to find him at the border. Our hero tells him to be careful on the way back, and the guard wishes him a good journey. Alex approaches the gate, hoping to open that door and find Seoris. He knocks on the door. Excited to finally meet this person, a man appears, saying he has never seen him before in his life. Alex says he finally found him and introduces himself as X, the successor of the king of gastronomy. This surprises the man, causing him to drop his coffee on the floor. Alex says he became the celestial of gastronomy and is trying to understand about the king. Seoris becomes thoughtful and says he needs time to think about it. Our hero agrees and feels relieved to see that Seoris is friendlier than Liglian. The man says that for now, he will believe because he has no choice but to believe, but just knowing Kalen and Liglin is enough. Seoris notices he hasn't offered anything. He conjures a cup, saying Alex must be tired, and offers him tea. Our hero believes everything is easier than with Liglian. Seoris asks Alex to relax to taste the different flavor of the tea. Alex questions this and drinks the tea. At that moment, the system floods his mind with information. Our hero is shocked to gain so much from a mere cup of tea. Seoris notices Alex liked the tea and asks if he came to learn something. Our hero says he has a lot to ask, but first he questions if Seoris knows one of the king of gastronomy's recipes. He says he believes he has one he learned by watching. Alex asks if he can teach it since he never managed so easily. Seoris says he wrote it down in a book and asks if there's anything else. Our hero asks for a minute, grabbing the ancient guardian diary and the worshipper's ring. Alex asks if he can look at the items he got after defeating a giant and a mage. Seoris is surprised by the items and asks where he found them. Alex is confused, questioning if that's bad. Seoris says it's wonderful. The language of ancient kingdom is old and he wanted to learn it, and the tome has all the details of the kingdom's fall. Alex thinks the giant was the guardian. Our hero is surprised by a surprise mission about the fall of the ancient kingdom. He believes he unlocked it after understanding the item, but it's the hardest so far. Seoris looks at the ring full of sinister energy and can only summarize that it's related to the kingdom's fall. Alex says he got it from a mage contaminating the rune in the forest and didn't understand what he was saying. Seoris fears he might be an outsider, leaving our hero surprised and confused. Seoris begins to explain what these beings are. However, an inconvenience interrupts by shouting. He knocks on the door, informing that there's a big problem. Seoris becomes curious and stands up. He asks our hero for permission, who says he will go along. Seoris opens the door and questions who is there. The young man says there's a bandit in the city attacking everyone and the guards are having trouble. Seoris questions if the guards can't defeat him. Alex finds it strange since the guards of Rian are strong NPCs. Seoris asks if our hero will go along, and he says of course. The mage tells the young man to show the way and the trio sets off. The city is in chaos, with destruction and carnage caused by an armed bandit. A villager swears he has never heard of anyone named Axe. The bandit says it's useless and quickly takes out the villager, for he knows his target crossed the in questions where he is hiding and seriously says he won't forgive him for hurting his little brother. The trio arrives in the city and finds the massacre that occurred. Alex comments that the city is in ruins and that the bandit has no mercy. Seoris comments that they are late. The young man falls to his knees on the ground. Seeing that the city is gone, he remembers the place full of life and people, with children coming and going. This makes him scream and cry in sadness. Alex wonders who would hurt these innocent people. The bandit appears on the roof, saying they are not locals and asks who Axe is. Our hero is surprised to see that he knows him. Seoris tells Alex not to let him catch him by surprise. The mage says he doesn't know Axe, talks about the visitor registry, and asks why the violence. The bandit says Axe almost left his little brother crippled at the border. Our hero remembers and questions if that guy is the brother of that idiot. Seoris knows it's none of their business and questions if the bandit caused that carnage. He replies yes, because they should have answered his questions about Axe, and says he won't stop until Axe shows up. He will murder everyone left, which makes the young man angry, who grabs a scythe while cursing the bandit who destroyed his city. The young man calls the assassin to fight, who finds it funny, as he thought he only knew how to run for help. Our hero believes talking won't lead anywhere, and Seoris agrees. And since the young man wanted help, There's no reason to deny helping him. The bandit gets excited because he was tired of the idle talk, and tells them to show what they can do as he charges into the fight. Seoris comments that he is attacking. The bandit approaches and easily injures Axel. However, he notices that the enemy doesn't cause much damage, but is very fast, managing to kick Seoris in the face. Seems to have put all points into agility. The young man notices the bandit is strong, and he can only do one thing to help. Axel asks if the mage knows acceleration magic. He says yes, our hero knows he can cause more damage if he can match the speeds. He asks Seoris to cast the magic on him. The mage says he will, but the bandit questions if they think he will let them, and charges to attack Seoris. Axel tells him to cast the magic while he distracts the enemy who curses him. Quickly, our hero changes the position of the sword and attacks the enemy, who dodges by throwing himself back. Axel gives no openings to the bandit. At this moment, the young man appears and grabs the enemy, surprising him. The bandit curses the young man, calling him a coward. He accuses him of annihilating innocence and questions if he is the coward there. Irritated, the enemy pulls out a dagger. The young man tells him to act quickly because he has grabbed him, but is fatally wounded by the bandit, making Axel and Seoris shocked. The young man tries to move away, and our hero tries to reach him. A side mission arises for him to buy time, and this surprises him. Seoris says the magic is ready. Increasing Alex's speed by 30, our hero tells the frightened young man not to speak, and for Seoris to help him. Our hero chooses cheetah meat, something quite exotic, and devours it in the middle of the fight without a napkin or fork, saying he will take care of the bastard alone. The young man faints while Seoris asks him to hold on. He tries to check the young man's condition, and upon seeing the wound, says it's deep and needs immediate care. Seoris says they need to take him quickly, as they can't keep him alive there. Alex tells the mage to go and leave it to him. Seoris questions if he will be okay. Confident, our hero says it will be easy. Even so, he doesn't know if he will win easily, and if he plays wrong, he will lose. Seoris says he will return quickly and asks him to hold on until then. Alex knows the enemy is more agile, has tricks, and will dodge his attacks. Therefore, he needs agile and precise strikes. One to win in one go, and for that, he needs to stay focused. The bandit knows he will be defeated and needs to dodge. He pulls out a smoke bomb to hide in it. However, our hero shoots like a rocket and initiates the attack. The bandit starts to throw the bomb but is surprised by Alex so close. Alex makes a quick cut, injuring the enemy's arm. He screams in pain and tries to move away, knowing that it was almost his neck that was hit, and says that he almost made him see if there's bread in the sky and asks if the arm was intentional. Alex says it's better to make him rot in jail, and the bandit doubts it. Our hero tells him to shut up and bring it on. The enemy says he's good at talking but seems quite relaxed because a wolf goes all out for its prey. He speeds up for the fight, saying he has nothing to lose, and is there without regrets. The bandit attacks, but Alex dodges. This makes the enemy tell him to stop dodging and face him with everything he's got. Alex stops and seriously prepares a new strike. The enemy attacks and our hero defends, enduring the impact while the bandit stares at him, and quickly attacks with the second weapon, but Alex is already behind him, making the bandit wonder when he got behind him. Alex quickly attacks, causing damage to the enemy but not executing him. After that, he kicks the bandit in the back, making him fly and crash into various things along the way. After that, Alex lands on the ground and looks back. Seoris approaches with help, asking if he's okay. The mage informs that he brought some guards. Alex gets excited to see he returned quickly and says he was almost done there. The mage notices the bandit returning and warns our hero to be careful. Alex turns and notices the bandit attacking with the sword in his teeth, which makes him serious. Our hero questions if the bandit hadn't given up. The enemy hits Alex with the short sword, with such force that it breaks the armor. His ability activates, causing stun and poison to our hero. The bandit says he put poison on the sword to deal with guys like our hero, who understands he slipped up this time. The mage approaches, worried. The enemy is impressed that Alex is holding on, and that so far he's only used basic attacks and no skills. However, the bandit gets tense, wondering if he didn't use them because he doesn't need to. His ally questions if Alex is okay. He says yes, and the guards join the fight. The bandit says he won't forget his face and, like every villain, says he'll be back next time, and that Alex can count on it. And after that, he runs away, jumping across rooftops, and our hero tells them not to follow because he's powerful, and that if he weren't poisoned, but his class doesn't have attack skills, that's why he couldn't counter, but next time Hell use a boost item from the start. The companion questions if he's okay and tells them to leave. Alex asks about the guy. The mage says Hell recover and that thanks to our hero, they're alive. The mentor knows the bandit will come back to get them. The guard thanks and says they'll sort things out, receiving his gratitude. The wise one decides they need to prepare while Alex suffers from the poison in the sorcerer's castle. A partner of light in a room, our hero is suffering. The mage tells him to hold on because Hell get better with that potion. The mentor asks him to drink the potion. Alex thanks him for that. Upon drinking the potion, he is healed of everything, making him feel light. The sorcerer says monster effects fade over time, but skill effects only heal. He knows Alex is important, and that's why many go after him. The master decides to train him. Our hero says the potion is incredible. The mage asks if he wants to be trained by him. Alex is confused by this coming out of nowhere. The wise one says Hell help him overcome his limits and asks if he accepts that. But he won't go easy. Alex sees this as an opportunity, and that there's no reason to say no. He stands up and kneels, saying he accepts him as his master. The mage tells Alex to rest because they start tomorrow. He says yes. The mage laughs, saying that's the spirit, and that he shouldn't run away after the first lesson. Alex says he won't do that. The old sorcerer says they'll see if it's true, and bids farewell after he leaves. Our hero celebrates, saying that the great sage is now his teacher, and Hell becomes stronger. And if he's lucky, Hell managed to learn magic. And if he can buff himself with food and magic, he won't know what to do with so much power. Meanwhile, in another place in the Red Tower, the bandit asks for power from someone sitting on a throne, saying Hell risk his life to execute that guy. The Lord of the Tower questions if it's true, and says he's surprised someone hit him. The bandit says he is with that mage and swears his life to that man for power. He is intrigued because by finding the sorcerer, they find the target. But to gain his power, he needs to find this same man. In the castle of Seoris, in the underground arena, there is a coliseum. In it, Alex eagerly prepares for the start of training and checks his missions. He notices that the main mission is still incomplete, and that he will have to eliminate the redhead. Alex knows he will appear again, but after the training, he won't stand a chance. Therefore, he needs to get stronger, or he will be in trouble against the war machine. Seoris arrives at the place called Alex, who greets him back. The mage laughs and gives him a gift, leaving him confused. Seoris says his armor broke and it was hard to move in it, and this will be better. Alex is doubtful, but the mage says if he wants to train, he has to use it. The system informs of the armor change, and our hero says it's better, and that sword on his back, the Reintrooper sword. Alex draws the sword, seeing it's lighter than his old weapon, and decides it will be the perfect temporary weapon. Seoris asks if he liked it. Alex says yes, making the mage laugh, and says that now they will start the training. Seoris tells him to put down the sword for a moment, and now hold his hand to try to feel the flow of mana. Alex feels Cyrus mana in his hands while focusing with great difficulty. After much energy, Seoris tells him to open his eyes. Alex opens his eyes. The mage asks how he has been using his strength, as he has a lot potential but doesn't know how to use it, and a large amount of mana in his body is blocked. Alex is surprised by this, saying he never had a reason to use mana, but Seoris explains that it's not just for spells, even warriors use it in their swords. Alex is surprised by this, and it's not difficult, they just need to take one step at a time, starting with feeling the mana. Alex knows the game went online recently and needs to master this before others, and if he can learn how to use mana, he can block spells too. Seoris says mana is in everyone, but non-mages have difficulty, and Alex asks how to do it. The mage says he will show him how it's done, tells him to sit and clear his mind to remember what he felt and find the mana within himself. Alex manages to remember, and just felt the mana in Cyrus' hands a little while ago. He is uncertain about this, but having felt it before, he seems to find something. Electricity emerges, and Seoris asks if he is feeling the mana. Alex confirms. The mage tells him to let the mana emerge and try to focus it on his fingertips. Alex begins to focus the mana as instructed. Seoris notices he succeeded and says if he can gather it in one point, he can use it on the sword, but it seems weak, and therefore he needs practice and time to improve. Time passes, and someone says they are almost there. A red-haired man is informed by a butler that they have just arrived, and there is the castle of Seoris. The redhead tells him to wait there, as he will enter with the henchmen, saying it was really hard to find the place and to know if Axe is really strong. In the end, he questions if he should test him. The pair arrives, and the butler knocks on the door calling Seoris. Knowing he is there, the door opens, and the mage asks what they want. The butler says his lord will explain. Seoris invites them in. The lord understands why they call him the great sage, as others would not be so welcoming. Seoris responds that he is not like that. In the study room with tea served, both observe each other. The lord says the tea is magnificent. Seoris thanks him and asks why he is there. He questions if the mage is not being impatient, and if he needs a reason to visit a friend. Seoris does not believe the Baron of Ruyan is there for that, and decides to investigate. The mage says he could have visited him. The noble says he knows he and his friend took care of the problem. Seoris understands. He is referring to Axel. The noble questions where this friend is, and wants to meet him. Seoris says he is training and will pass the message, but the redhead wants to speak directly with him. The mage says he trains seriously and can introduce him next time. This makes the butler irritated, questioning how he dares to argue with the lord, and accusing the old mage of having no manners. The lord says that's enough. As he is training seriously, the butler apologizes. The noble says they don't want to disturb and will leave, but the butler remains irritated. After getting up, the lord thanks, and Seoris says that after the training he will take him to him. He tells the mage that he will wait for both of their visits. After that, the visitors leave. But the noble says he wants to ask a question, and he questions the name of the young man who might be someone he knows. Seoris gets irritated, as it seems they are using him for an investigation. He gives a false name. Axer the noble seems to fall for the lie, but he says it's a serious crime to lie to a baron in Ruyan, as he is a noble. Seoris says he knows that the noble accepts and says until next time, and the mage bids farewell. He feels tired knowing they will soon find him, and Axel has just started training. With no choices, Seoris decides to send our hero after the next ingredient far away, in the Merfolk Castle. Back in the underground arena, Axel is surprised and questions about the training that started yesterday. Seoris says he will improve during real fights and needs to find the next ingredient, and will continue the training upon return. Axel understands and accepts the decision, understanding that Seoris must have his reasons and he should trust him. The mage thanks and says to leave before dawn to go to the Merfolk Castle. Seoris says he will tell more tomorrow, and for Axel to make sure he is ready, the mage says he wants to see how his training is going. He says it's not good yet. Axel activates the mana, saying he can already imbue magic into the sword. Incredulous, Seoris questions if that's not good, already being able to imbue so much magic. He says he is shocked by his talent, and has no doubts that he is the successor, and comments that the king chose a peculiar young man. During the night, the noble's carriage continues its journey, and he says Seoris is a terrible liar. The butler says he does not forgive the insults made to him, and if given the order, he will act accordingly. However, seriously, the noble questions if he didn't tell him to stop worrying. The butler apologizes for speaking too much, and the noble tells the young man to forget it, because he already has an order to find out who Seoris' friend is in the coastal village south of Ruyan. Alex and Seoris are on a pier. Our hero says he is ready to leave, and questions how he will find the merfolk. Seoris begins to explain. The first ingredient is the merfolk scale. Alex questions if he just needs to hunt one. The mage says no, and that he has much to learn because they are creatures called by some the spirits of the seas, very cunning and cautious, and he will never have a scale by fighting, as he will run out of air before, and that's why he shouldn't fight. Alex understands he will have to ask. Seoris says if he gains their trust, he will have them. Our hero notes that it's another friendship mission. He asks if they will accept his help just like that. Seoris says they will ask for his help and give something to breathe underwater. Those are artificial gills. Alex thanks, and Seoris bids farewell, wishing him to return well. Our hero says he will bring back fish for sashimi, and the mage says he will wait. Alex equips the item, asking if he will breathe underwater. In the end, he takes a breath and enters the sea. Axel realizes he can breathe underwater and notices something ahead. He asks if it's the Merfolk Island. There are lights and it scares him a little, but since it's a mission from the King of Gastronomy, He needs to fulfill it. Axel approaches, noticing that the deeper he goes, the darker it gets. However, he notices something and wonders if there was something behind him and if it's a monster. Our hero can't see anything in the dark and is curious about the light ahead. He believes he is getting closer, until he notices it's a huge sea monster. Axel is surprised and quickly draws his sword to fight, activating the shield of Kalshumar that blocks the monster's headbutt. However, something breaks, the creature is pushed back, and Axel brandishes his weapon. The sea monster returns and once again attacks our hero, who faces it, and with a single blow, he defeats it. Seeing that he has defeated the champion of the depths, gaining fame, title, and 3 levels while thinking he ruined the creature's name. However, Nemo touches his shoulder while he was speaking, calling him. This scares our hero. Upon hearing the fish question what he just did, the fish says it would be good to get out. Axel is surprised, but he tells him to give a fin, and if he wants to live, he should follow, as the butcher of the depths will come after him. Axel is confused about the strength of the new enemy just because he defeated the champion. Nemo says he will explain when they are safe and swims away. Axel wonders if this is a game event, as the fish appeared out of nowhere. In the end, he decides to just follow the talking fish. First they hide in a cave. The fish says it was close, and Axel questions why they ran away. The fish questions how he understands him, and our hero says it's the gills. This excites him about talking to a human, and he wants to know if he has any questions. Axel asks if he is some kind of spirit, as he seems like the deer in the forest. The fish says he's just normal, but he's a gossip and certainly knows things. Axel questions if this is true, and asks why he was in trouble. The fish says that's exactly it. Axel questions if several similar monsters were approaching, and thanks him. The fish says Seahawk would have eliminated him, as that was his pet. Axel doesn't understand, and the fish says he executed Seahawk's pet. Our hero understands what he did, and that this won't be good for the affinity level. Axel questions what Seahawk is like and says he'll apologize later. Nemo says he's not someone who forgives. He is the leader of the Fishfolk Coalition, violent and cruel, and his aggression is what makes him feared. Axel knows they are crazy for fights, plundering, and enslaving others, and since Seahawk is the leader of this race, he must be crazier than the others. The fish says there's no need to apologize, as it feared Seahawk and would be grateful for what was done. Axel says he understands the scenario, and asks if their base is nearby. The fish says no, and he'll have to swim a lot to get there. Axel questions why the champion of the depths was there. The fish says they are trying to expand their influence and the merfolk's territory is the target. Axel asks if they won't do anything about it. However, the fish says no one in the sea can defeat the fishfolk, and if it were him, he would return to land. Axel questions if the merfolk are nearby. The fish says yes, and our hero asks if he can show the way. This surprises the fish, who asks if he heard him. Axel tells him not to be so serious. However, he says it's better to stay away from the fishfolk, and questions how crazy he needs to be to swim near their target. Axel tells him that running away in fear won't change anything, and that he's not as weak as he seems, and asks to just show the way. The fish says he's quite stubborn, and not to say he wasn't warned. Axel has no problem and says he's really strong. The fish tells him to follow, and if he encounters fishfolk, not to talk to him. Our hero understands and tells him to show the way. Both leave the cave. Axel knows this is the best chance to get the material, and it's time to increase the affinity level on the Merfolk Island. A soldier swims to the palace, passing by the stairs, which are useless. He urgently calls for Gapus, and warns that the Fishfolk Coalition is approaching. This makes Gapus irritated. He asks if any of them stirred them up. They say no, and they're coming in full force. Gapus becomes furious, imbues mana into the trident, and strikes the ground, releasing power, thinking that his enemies think they can invade the Merfolk Island. Gapus orders the nearby waters to be put on alert and to report anything suspicious. The Merfolk soldier accepts the command, while Gapus looks at the ocean, knowing they're in trouble. Near the Sea People's Island, Seahawk is called by one of his soldiers, who informs him that the army is ready, making him smile slightly, and orders the signal for the invasion to begin. At that moment, the drums are played. Seahawk addresses his fishmen warriors, who shout fervently, telling them to show their strength to these merfolk, and orders them to advance to the island. The war against the Sea People is about to begin. Thus, the fishmen advance towards the island, ready to show their power. Far away, our adventurer and his fish friend are stopped by two handsome merfolk. One of them tells them to be quiet, having no patience for excuses. Well, if they didn't want visitors, they should have put a broom behind the door. 3 more handsome merfolk approach them. Gapus observes the situation. A human and a fish with tridents pointed at them. He asks who defeated the champion of the depths, and is told it was Axel. Upon analyzing them better, the blonde merfolk doesn't feel any evil energy emanating from them. The little fish confidently says he saw the adventurer defeat the creature with a single blow. However, Gapus states that there is only one way to find out, and asks him to close his eyes. He then begins to read the animal's mind, almost as if he were Aquaman. Surprised, Axe watches the magic being used. Thanks to it, Gapus could see his fight against the champion of the depths from start to finish. He finishes the mind reading and orders his soldiers to lower their weapons. Because the little fish is telling the truth, Gapus looks at the adventurer and asks his name, who promptly introduces himself with his right hand on his chest. The merman doesn't question anything else, he just proposes that he help them in exchange for their trust. Axe accepts the proposal, as he needs it to obtain the ingredient for the next recipe. And the quest, the battle for the island of the sea people, appears. Considering it's about a literal war, it's obvious the difficulty would be higher. What matters is that the adventurer has a giant mission all to himself. The blonde merman tells him to follow, and says it's been centuries since they've had a human guest. Axe says he is honored by this. However, Gapus is not foolish, and knows he wouldn't help them without something in return. And so, they begin to head to the island of the sea people. There, various mermaids and mermen swim among the corals and other sea creatures. Axe and the little fish admire the place, impressed by its vast beauty. Gapus notices this and says this is why the island is worthy of protection. However, even with this blessing, the same cannot be said for its military power. Upon hearing this, Axe already concludes that he will basically have to fight alone. Gapus asserts that they won't be defeated so easily, as they have strategy on their side. The problem is that you can't win a battle with just a plan on paper. But the adventurer states that they also need strength, something he has in abundance. The blonde merman looks at him for a while, and fully agrees, saying that the human fits very well in that role. The conversation is interrupted by the sound of a conch trumpet. From the sound, Axe even thinks it's one of those foghorns. Gapus warns that the fishmen have already arrived, and tells the adventurer that it's time for battle. But first, a pause for our adventurer to eat the sushi of champions. With the divine palate, he gains advantages underwater and the tidal light in the depths. The little fish decides to leave before things go south for him, and Axe thanks him for his help. It seems that defeating that giant ugly eel was quite effective. DD is summoned, but ignore the fact that he's not a water type and is breathing down there. While Axe pets his companion, Gapus is astonished. He even asks if that's really a dragon, and quickly receives a yes from both. The merman expected everything, except for such a mystical creature being pulled out like that. Back to what matters, the sea people's army is ready. Gapus informs Axe that the enemy forces will arrive soon. Already a bit anxious, he then says he will stay on the front line the whole time. The blonde merman thanks him, and the human says to finish their previous conversation later. His excitement is noticeable. He almost feels like a hero there, and that means Axe and DD must fight as one. The fishman army approaches more and more. Seeing that it looks like a swarm of insects, he asks if the little dragon is ready. Both swim until they are on the front line. With the sea people's army behind nervous, Gapus swallows hard, and tells Axe not to disappoint them now. Mermen and fishmen are face to face to confront each other. Seahawk smells the human, but already imagined he was the one who defeated his pet. His warriors start laughing. Don't ask me why. Axe counts the number of enemies and notices there are even deep-sea monsters with them, making the merman even more nervous. The fishman commander gives them 2 options: be defeated now or later. The adventurer pauses and thinks a bit, perhaps moved by such benevolence. However, he just turns to DD and asks if he likes fish meat, irritating Seahawk as deeply as the sea they are in. The little dragon then inhales a bit of air, or water, who knows, and releases a large blast towards the fishmen, surprising Gapus and his army. Seahawk and his warriors are hit by the attack and are now confused. The commander shouts for them to hold firm and not be affected by it. Impressed by DD's power, Gapus simply says that victory is just ahead. Axe observes the situation of the fishmen. Seahawk is clearly furious, eager to beat up this nosy human, and orders his warriors to finish everyone off. Damn it all, the fishmen then swim quickly towards Axe. He raises his sword and calls for a fight, just waiting for this moment. He uses the bear stance, emanating a large amount of energy, then advances against the fishmen. He starts slicing several at once, already preparing the sashimi boat for dinner. Then he directs his next attack to the seafloor, causing a great explosion and, who knows, discovering the first oil well in the game. Swords clash as blows are exchanged. Our adventurer and the fishman commander are fiercely facing each other. Both stare at each other, still willing to continue even with the bear stance. Seahawk is strong enough to withstand his attacks. Gapus watches the fight from afar, believing that, even though the human is alone, victory will soon be theirs. With not much else to do, he joins his hands and prays for Axe, who feels his HP being restored. With the Triton's healing, he can continue attacking Seahawk even after being hit. It's time to advance for real, and the combat between Axe and Seahawk continues. Seeing the magnitude of the fight, one of the fishmen warriors decides to take down DD. The little dragon swims quickly towards him, and he does the same while shouting. However, the fish underestimated the headbutt of this little creature, which hits him squarely in the belly. And DD continues advancing, even with a bump on his head. Gapus notices this and starts healing him. Axe delivers another blow to Seahawk, which seems to have really hurt. Seeing their leader injured, the fishmen warriors become worried and try to intervene, but they are ordered by him not to interfere. Clearly with a thirst for human blood, Axe notices that Seahawk is worn out and mocks his exaggerated confidence. My friend, that was just the warm-up. A red energy emanates from the fishman's body. The adventurer advances against him again. However, Seahawk thrusts his sword into the adventurer's chest. Dealing him a critical hit, he pierced Axe's defense as easily as slicing through a sea cucumber. Axe panics as he sees his HP dropping more and more. Even with Gapus healing, it's possible he might kick the bucket if he's pierced like that a few more times. Seeing his expression, the commander laughs and says he will make him regret challenging him. Gapus notices that Axe is in trouble and orders his army to focus their prayers on him. His soldiers try to question him, but he just ignores them. Gapus begins to bless the adventurer, the only one capable of saving them. With little choice, they drop their tridents and shields, and initiate the blessing of the sea people, making Axe recover HP and increase his damage. He feels the energy growing in his body and believes it's enough to end this. Seahawk even feels the scales on his backside bristle at sensing that power emanating from him. He orders his warriors to attack the Tritons. The fishmen obey and advance to try to attack them, but only if it's over DD's round little body, which releases another strong burst of air at them, leaving them confused again and probably with a severe headache. Out of patience, Seahawk decides to finish Axe before more blessings reach him. With blood in his eyes, he starts swimming rapidly towards the human, who does the same. Both are about to deliver the final sword strike, looking like two aquatic samurais. However, Axe is faster and hits Seahawk's neck, who is incredulous at feeling the blow. After all, the commander was absolutely sure that the heavens were on his side. Two fishmen rush to Seahawk upon seeing him motionless and realize that his body is limper than an octopus without their commander. They know they will never be a match for our adventurer. One of the warriors orders everyone to retreat to protect their leader. With that, the fishman army is defeated, and Gapus soldiers can finally celebrate the victory. Despite the tedious fight, the rewards and the title alone at the top made it worthwhile. The Tritons approach Axe, and the blonde shows great gratitude for saving the island. They give their sincerest thanks, and Axe states that they wouldn't have won without everyone's help, so he is also grateful to them. Seeing DD approaching, he opens his arms to receive him and thanks him too. Along with the completed quest, he also gained 3 accessories with a skeleton symbol, perfect for a gothic outing in the cemetery. Too bad he can only use them at level 250. With the end of the war, Gapus invites him to visit the island of the sea people. Axe takes the opportunity to ask who governs the place, and it is said to be the island's princess, a mermaid with a tender heart who has been through a lot since she rarely interacts with outsiders. He asks if he will be able to meet her. Gapus says yes. After all, Axe is their hero and deserves a little reward from the princess. nothing less than the minimum after having participated in a war. So, the duo follows the blonde merman to the island. Upon arrival, Axe and Gapis are greeted with petals and enthusiastic cheers. A beautiful mermaid with pink hair welcomes them at the entrance of the castle, and the two quickly greet her. This is Princess Melia, the ruler of the Sea People's Island. The mermaid apologizes for not being able to receive them outside her castle, but the adventurer simply responds that he understands the situation. To reward him, she tells him to choose one of the treasures present in the island's crypts. He thanks her, but the princess apologizes for not being able to offer more than that. Melia then shares that she hears the spiritual voices of all living beings, including the painful cries of the runic stone on the island. Curious to understand better, she asks Axe about the crystal. He begins to share everything he knows and has faced up to that point. After listening to him, Melia offers her help, even without fully understanding the burden he carries. And the adventurer thanks her for her good intentions. Changing the subject, the princess asks Gapis to accompany him to the crypt, who promptly obeys and tells Axe to follow him. In the island's crypt, the blonde merman presents 3 treasures to choose from: the precious sword of Oru, the shield of the ancient Triton knight, and the blade of Nain. All the treasures are interesting to Axe, leaving him unsure of which to take. However, the third caught his attention: the most high attack at level 1 and blocked effects. And so, he chose the blade of Nain as his reward. Gapis observes him from a distance until he sees something surprising. The sword seems to be reacting to its new user at Maisie Enterprises. The straight-haired dev is deep in thought. A man with a pompadour offers him a drink. The pompadour guy tells him not to worry so much about it, as it's not his job accepting the drink. The straight-haired one says he knows that. He mentions that the player who won the battle against the Sea People appeared the previous day. The mysterious player went to the bottom of the sea, and the dev reviews the battle between the two. This player fought against the entire Sea People, so the gossip about him spreads quickly. The straight-haired dev asks the other dev if he didn't find it a bit too fast. The pompadour guy agrees, as technically the fighter shouldn't be at that level. Kim wonders how he defeated the entire Sea People and was left to his own devices. Concerned, he asks who this guy is who developed the character so quickly. The pompadour guy says they should analyze that the player's powers are extraordinary, and questions if all this power could be a game bug. The door opens, and another man approaches, saying he received a call from the central office. Very agitated, he says the mysterious player completed the first level quest. The two devs who were talking are incredulous and check their phones. On the phone screen, we see the notification that the mysterious player completed the quest. We then move to the CEO's office. We see someone picking up a yellow folder. A man speaks to the CEO, saying that was the report on Axe's mission progress. He says he sent the messages and video the CEO mentioned to the administrators. The bearded man thanks him and says everyone should be on alert now. The employee says everyone is trying to find out who the mysterious player is. The CEO laughs, saying they must be desperate to discover who the player is. A notification appears on the notebook that Axe has just logged in. In another scene, we see a man in an overcoat facing a Triton, a fish, and a woman. Axe asks the fish not to be eaten before they meet again. The fish tells him not to worry, as it will be much bigger the next time they meet. The protagonist smiles excitedly, saying he's looking forward to seeing that the Triton bids farewell to Axe, who thanks him before leaving. The merman says he couldn't give him the scale, as it's a sign of love, and that's why he asked Her Highness to do it. The beautiful red-haired woman seems embarrassed and says he told her everything. Smiling, she asks Axe to accept her scale. It will bring him safety on his journey, and the beautiful mermaid will wait for him on his next visit. Axe accepts the scale, and an item acquired notification appears. The Triton, the mermaid, and the little fish bid farewell to Axe, and he thanks them. The protagonist continues his journey. He wonders what the next ingredient would be and decides to ask Master Seoris. We see the Seoris lighthouse castle. A gloved hand knocks on the door opens and we see a blond man with a beard coming out. He says that Axe returned quickly. Seoris asks Axe to come in because he wants to know what happened. Axe says he brought good quality fish for dinner. Axe and Seoris are in a luxurious room talking. The protagonist shows the master that he obtained the mermaid scale. Seoris is astonished to see the color of the scale, asking if it was from Princess Melia. Axe agrees and says she was quite happy to give him the scale. The bearded man is perplexed, thinking about the fact, imagining that the princess must like Axe. Our protagonist excitedly asks which ingredients are missing now. Sioris responds that now only one ingredient is missing to complete the recipe, and that the scale was the hardest to obtain, so the last one will be quite simple. Axe then asks what the ingredient is. The master replies that the next ingredient is water. The hero is surprised by this. The wise man adds that it's not just any water, but the one found at the top of the eternal coral reef. Excited, Axe asks where the reef is and says he will go there right away. Sioris asks the hero to wait before leaving, to rest, and continue recounting his heroic deeds. The protagonist agrees to spend the night before setting out on his adventure. Night falls, and a noise can be heard in the castle corridors. A man with blue hair and an overcoat arrives, destroying the furniture in the place. The troublemaker thinks to himself that he can't believe this is happening. He ponders that the prophecy said his guild should be the strongest in fate. Reflecting on everything the guild possesses in the land of fate, he wonders how the hero still manages his feats. The blue-haired intruder concludes that everything has been going wrong since Axe appeared, and very angry he reflects that he has the impression that Axe is the mysterious player. A sailboat appears, and we are in the strait of the Eternal Coral Reef Archipelago. We can see the crew of the boat. Then the highlights of Axe's battles appear. An unknown user posted a video in the Fate Gallery about a Korean player, surpassing 100 million views. We see headlines in various different news outlets commenting on the Korean player's feats. We return to the protagonist, and he is thoughtful about some issues. He reflects that it was good that all the water turbulence covered his face, and that Kamui will think it was him, and that this means the war machine will start wanting to delay him. Just imagining going against a boss already gives Axe a headache. But would they really bother with such an unimportant streamer? Axe doesn't know about the rest of the jerks, but he imagines Kaimus is watching him. He will be waiting for the right moment to suffocate the hero, as he always does. Lost in his thoughts, Axe begins to project the image of a battle in his mind. He has a trick up his sleeve for the next time he encounters Kaimus, and he is no longer the same guy he was in Rin Online. Footsteps are heard, and Shoris approaches, asking if something is bothering Axe. The protagonist smiles and says it's nothing serious, but he asks the wise man what he would do if he had a great power behind him. Shoris says no one would dare to do that, but then he explains that if he could anticipate and learn the threat's attacks, he would strike first. Axe scratches his head and then asks if it would be a preemptive strike. The wise man says he would gradually undermine the threat's power, and that the hero should consider what would be most effective while searching the reef. The protagonist asks if that island is the reef. Shoris replies that the reef is at the top of that island, and that it is called the Eternal Coral Reef because its size is overwhelming. Surprised, Axe asks if the reef is the entire island. Shoris explains that the Eternal Coral Reef is a mountain lake and spring that holds the island's energy and spirit. Long ago, when the wounded drank its water, they were blessed by a miracle. The wise man says that this is the water Axe must seek, that it is at the peak, and the hero must collect some and return. Confident, our protagonist beats his chest and says he will return with some of the water. Shoris is happy with the hero's vigor, smiles, and says he envies his confidence. Nearby, there is a red-haired man in a cloak, eavesdropping on their conversation. The redhead wonders if it's not Axe that the war machine ordered to be killed this morning. The eavesdropper is with two other cloaked men, and he asks Azuz what they should do about the hero. Azuz says it's very lucky Axe is on the same boat as them. There is a notification from the War Machine Guild showing a wanted picture of Axe. The boat approaches the port and docks. Axe and Sioris disembark from the boat, followed by the nosy redhead. He thinks now is the chance to cast a tracking spell with the tip of his finger. He sends energy towards Axe's back. The tracking spell allows you to see the location of whoever is connected to it. The redhead and his accomplices also leave the boat. Sioris tells Axe to go fetch water, saying he will stay there to decipher the language of the ancient kingdom's newspaper. The two bid farewell. The wise one wishes his friend a safe journey. From afar, Azuz asks if the tracking spell was cast. The redhead confirms. Now Azuz and his henchmen will begin the hunt. Already at the Eternal Coral Reef, there are many trees and a beautiful landscape. Axe is thinking he's been walking for a while but doesn't know if he's close. He's pessimistic upon seeing he's arrived at a clearing, not believing it's the right place. The hero hears footsteps behind him. It's a Zus gang. Axe senses the presence of enemies and stays alert. One of the enemies draws his sword and in a rush, jumps at Axe. Our fierce protagonist prepares to unsheath his sword. He says the villain is very fast and didn't expect him to attack so abruptly. The two begin a sword fight. Azu says it's good not to have to calculate what needs to be done anymore. Axe attacks with his sword, forcefully throwing the enemy backward. Azuz's sycophants come running, asking if he's okay. Azuz is astonished because he thought Axe was level 196, but he's managing to dodge his blows. Who is level 300? The villain concludes that Axe is not an ordinary player. Our hero regains his battle stance and grabs his sword. The henchmen attack him simultaneously and he defends himself with a spinning strike. He sends the enemies flying away. This makes him vulnerable, and Azuz notices this opening. Axe manages to notice the opportunists charge. The enemy shouts goodbye to Axe while delivering a powerful sword strike. Amidst the trees, the sound of the two warriors' exciting battle can be heard. Azuz runs furiously towards Axe. The two cross swords and the hero manages to defend himself. The enemy insists on striking the hero with all his might. He swings his sword vigorously while maintaining his balance. The two combatants stare at each other, creating a tense atmosphere. The villain holds his sword with much hatred and perseverance in his eyes. Azuz gains momentum and runs to attack again with all his strength. Axe prepares to defend the attack, positioning himself. The attacker's eyes shine with hatred and energy. With great force, he delivers another blow, this time even stronger. However, even so, Axe manages to defend himself again in a counterattack. The hero manages to strike with a shocking energy. This throws the villain backward with the force of the wind. Azuz manages to defend himself, but the blow was strong. Our protagonist takes advantage of the opening and charges forward. He extends his hand towards the adversary's neck. Now Azuz's neck is being squeezed by Axe. Trembling, the villain surrenders, understanding that the hero possesses monstrous power. The protagonist asks which guildmaster is chasing a player alone. Still with his neck held by the hero's hand, Azuz says he won't reveal that. Axe says it would be his best option, or else give his equipment to him. Azuz's henchmen are unconscious. Our hero says he would let the villain collect their equipment if the two come to an agreement. Revolted, Azuz then decides to give in and says he works for Chimus of the War Machine. The protagonist releases the adversary's neck, who falls to the ground, gasping. Concerned, Axe thinks that Chimus is already up to his tricks. The brave hero says the guild leader can send whoever he wants, and he will destroy them all. A portal opens on the ground. DD emerges. Now our protagonist will level up. The cute little dragon waits sitting on the ground. Azuz is perplexed to see a dragon and asks how Axe got it. The protagonist ignores the question and orders DD to kill the villain to level up. The poor guy doesn't understand this. As Axe said, he would let him live. The little dragon flaps its wings. The sarcastic hero says he changed his mind. However, Axe says he wants steal Azuz's equipment, and he can return and find them later. DD approaches his target, who screams in fear that the hero had promised. The dragon releases an absurd burst of fire that engulfs Azuz like a barbecue. The cute one levels up and the poor villain gets dragged down. Surprisingly, after defeating the villain, the little dragon begins to evolve. He starts to shine and Axe admires, fascinated. DD is surprised by his evolution. The protagonist pets his pet, saying that now he has gotten a bit bigger. Hero and pet press their faces together. Axe affirms that DD is still equally cute. The dragon climbs onto the protagonist's shoulder, and he says to go after the water. The two friends continue their journey side by side. Meanwhile, at the explorer Azuz's house, we see the man coming out of a door wearing virtual reality glasses. He is very irritated, cursing Axe for saying he would leave him alive and then killing him. He huffs in anger, saying he will gather all the guild members to get revenge. We return to the mountain of the infinite coral reef. DD and Axe continue their path. The hero seems tired and says they are quite high now, but wonders if they are still far. He asks DD to try to find a nearby lake. The little dragon flies off on his new mission. Upon reaching a good altitude, our cute one manages to spot a lake. DD excitedly shouts to inform Axe of what he found. The hero runs excitedly towards the little dragon. He continues his path until he finds a very beautiful view. Our protagonist is astonished by the beautiful view. It's the eternal coral reef. It's a very beautiful place, With many trees and a lake with crystal clear water, the eternal coral reef was discovered for the first time by our protagonist. Our hero ended up encountering a giant serpent that emerged from the lake. It's the eternal sea serpent. She is the guardian of the reef and is known for her deadly venom with her fangs dripping venom. She stares at Axe. If anyone thought getting the eternal coral water would be easy, they better think again. The serpent is not friendly at all and is willing to attack our protagonist. Axe doesn't back down and says he has been saving the bear stance precisely for this moment. He hopes she is stronger than the Cyhawk because the stronger the enemy, the better the drops. The hero draws his sword, asking for the serpent to be strong. Axe prepares for his bear stance strike and charges the energy. The serpent comes at him with full force as she approaches. The hero is already prepared, saying if she's going to attack first, she should prepare for a counterattack. The protagonist attacks with his sword, shouting a full-force charge. The strike hits the monster, which is defeated, and this makes Axe level up 4 times. We can see that the hero's charge was enough to take the snake's head off. Axe is proud of his strength. He thinks he was stronger than he imagined he would be. The serpent's drops appear, and as a special effect, if he uses the material to make armor, it reduces mana cost by 30. The hero is happy with the drop as he finds the mana cost reduction ability great. He fills his pockets with joy, already imagining how much he will be able to sell the item for. Axe then takes some water from the lake with a glass. Curious, he wonders what the water would taste like, and decides to try it, taking a sip. Smiling, he says it's really very sweet, practically honey. He receives some buffs for drinking the water. His stats increase, and he gains some abilities. The status board surprises him as he starts receiving many notifications. Axe is amazed because his life and mana increased by 50 and strength, intelligence, and agility increased by 100 points. Thinking about all these buffs, he thinks he should get as much of that water as he can, as the effect might last for days. Already imagining recipes, he considers how ramen made with that water would be. Meanwhile, we return to the port and see some boats. We are now at the port hotel of the Coral Reef Archipelago. Axe is back and reunites with Seoris, who says he took longer than he thought. The hero says he knows, but he found a treasure he couldn't pass up. The blonde says he noticed that Axe has a greedy smile and asks about the water. The protagonist proudly says he did bring what he went to find. Then Seoris says to prepare for the second recipe of the culinary king. They grab a pot. The water must boil at the right temperature with the mermaid scale. The scale starts to dissolve inside the pot. The two wait patiently for the recipe until it finishes, named as Cyrus Royal Cooked Recipe. It's a kind of bright red tea which they serve in a cup. Axe holds the cup, appreciating the aroma of the tea and imagining what it must taste like. The hero takes a small sip of the liquid. But even a small sip already makes him feel the impact of immense energy. He then has a sudden vision. In a field within the past memories of the king of culinary, armored soldiers run across the field with their swords and shields. We see a bearded blonde man, a witch, and Axe, who is now green and floating like a memory. The bearded man says he knew the elite soldiers of Caravan would come. They wouldn't stand a chance in hand-to-hand combat. The witch draws her book. She asks why she was left alone with a dumb muscle head. The blonde man feels offended, and the witch says the person said they would return, so they must indeed return. Axe concludes that the witch is a very bold young lady. He looks around and realizes the place is familiar, but he knows he's never been there before. On the battlefield, we see the soldiers getting closer and closer. One of the soldiers shouts that the time for revenge has come. They advance towards the bearded man who has his shield ready. He slams the shield on the ground with force, causing a boom. The blonde man says that His Majesty will come to help them if they are pushed back. The witch mocks his fear, explaining that the forces of the king of culinary wouldn't lose to these metal soldiers. She begins to gather energy in her hand while saying the soldiers will regret attacking, and then she casts a spell towards the soldiers. They are hit squarely by the blow and many fall. Meanwhile, the blonde man protects himself with his enormous shield. More soldiers approach, and the squire says they won't be able to hold out for long. While watching everything, Axe thinks that even Master Squire Kalshummer and the best mage around wouldn't be able to hold off so many soldiers. The squire slams the shield on the ground again, causing a gust of wind. The tireless soldiers continue their charge. Suddenly, an explosion interrupts everything on the battlefield. Everyone is surprised, and Kalshummer shouts, "Majesty!" Axe, apprehensive, wonders if it would be the king of culinary who finally decided to appear. At the sight of the explosion, we see a man with bright eyes and a red cape. He apologizes for his delay. In the distance, the sounds resulting from the power the witch is accumulating in her hands can be heard on the battlefield. The warriors continue the fight. The armored soldier commands the attack. The steel-covered warriors threaten the majesty and say it will be his last day alive. Axe, impressed, watches the scene knowing it will be a wild battle. The witch's purple strikes fly towards the soldiers. Kalshimmer is worried, as the monarch won't be able to hold out for long. The crowned ruler is in trouble and believes they won't win at this pace. He raises his hand, making a gesture with his fingers, shouting, "Giant wave of judgment." The king is focused and gathering all his strength. Drops of water begin to fall from the sky in large quantities. The enemy soldiers are impressed by the scene. They realize the sky is getting darker and darker. Droplets of water and wind swirl around the monarch, who continues to concentrate his power. Sensing the danger, the armed warriors shout to retreat. The king raises his hand and the environment is getting darker. He changes his expression, becoming more serious and intense. One of the warriors raises his sword in fear, calling out to God. Suddenly, a gigantic wave drowns several enemies. The majesty floats with his immense power, enveloped by water. This scares off the enemies who run in despair. The leader of the armed soldiers realizes that the power of the wave can choose who to attack like magic. The magical tsunami continues to sweep across the battlefield. Axe is impressed by such power. He approaches the king to analyze the strike further. The celestial palette detects the power called Sea of Divine Judgment. The user's body absorbs the energy of the ever-changing sea. Axe acquires this new power, which uses 80 of his mana, and a huge wave is summoned. It injures enemies and heals allies. Our hero returns from the trance with a piercing scream. Seoris, frightened, asks if he is okay. Axe explains that he had a vision with the king of culinary. The anxious blonde wants to know more details. Our protagonist, still perplexed, says he learned the skill Sea of Divine Judgment. Seoris, incredulous, asks if he is really talking about the skill that only the majesty could use. In Cyrus Castle, in the underground training fields, in a very large room, we can see a faint glow of light. Axe and Seoris are in a training area. The blonde is gathering all his strength. He extends his hand to deliver a punch in the air. The focused bearded man delivers a sequence of punches in the air. Seoris flexes his arms in a battle pose. Axe is astounded by such power. Even the air trembles with the power of the blonde's arms. The hero believes that if he hit him, a punch could send him flying upwards. The strong blonde says that's what it means to master the arts of combat after all his experiences. He mentions that he believes he can teach Axe because the hero is talented and capable. We have a fighter with spiky hair and gloves representing Western martial arts. This is a fighting style that hasn't been fully explored in Fate, but it's the main style in the West. Axe is ready to start right now. He wears an open training uniform and prepares himself. A month later, we're back at the training field of Seoris Castle. Axe is in shape and focused. He can feel the energy flowing through him. The hero assumes a kung fu stance. His eyes shine with vigor. As he moves, he prepares a punch with his strength, and as he delivers the blow, we can see incredible energy emanating from him. The punch is so strong that it emits wind and energy. The energy is powerful enough to crack the wall ahead. Seoris stands beside his student, who radiates strength and intensity. The blonde is surprised by the control Axe has over his chi, something he's never seen. Our hero just smiles proudly, and says that now he can say he has mastered the technique. The bearded master laughs and says there's nothing more he can teach. Axe thanks him. The protagonist checks his status and sees he's at level 203 with many improvements. He puts on his usual attire, saying he's now going to sell his restaurant to focus on the quest of the ancient kingdom. We then go to Axe's restaurant. Po Chicken inside. Our hero is sweeping the floor. As he sweeps, he thinks he spent a month training with Seoris and can handle enemies that come in waves. He imagines that once he sells the restaurant, he'll pay more attention to Fate, but a thought about War Machine crosses his mind. His daydreams are interrupted by the door opening. He was going to greet the person, but remembers they are already closed. A very beautiful red-haired girl asks if they are closed, even though it's only 3 p.m. Axe awkwardly apologizes, saying he has to sell the restaurant and it was the last day open, and that he only opened today to clean the place a bit. The girl puts her hand on her face, disappointed, but says she recognizes his voice. She smiles and asks if his name isn't Ax, now even more awkward and surprised, says he has no idea what she's talking about. The girl is intrigued and knows his voice is very familiar. She says he's the Maisie streamer and that she's one of the people who gives him gold. The writer SEO, the hero, thinks the girl is really confident in what she's saying, that she recognized him. SEO Yuyung, a junior writer at X Broadcasting, watches Ax's streams as writer SEO. We see someone eating fried chicken while others comment. SEO is one of Ax's regular viewers. Our hero, impressed, says it's nice to meet SEO and thanks her for all the support. Taking something from her bag, the girl says he sounds just like he does online. She hands him a small piece of paper. It's a business card from X Broadcasting with her name and contact information. Ax looks closely at the card, seeming surprised. Embarrassed, SEO asks if the boy has ever done an interview before and that she'd love to interview him. The hero seems a bit surprised but thinks that if she's one of his biggest supporters, he should accept in Ax's restaurant. We see two young people talking at a table, him and SEO. Embarrassed, the hero says he's not sure if he's in the mood to give an interview right now. He thinks his true power might end up showing in the interview, so it's better to hold back. SEO says she figured he wouldn't be interested, but with his level of popularity, it doesn't make sense to stay behind the scenes. The girl tries to calm herself, thinking she can get an interview later. No rush, she stands up. Remembering Ax was about to close the restaurant, he says it's all okay. Awkwardly, our protagonist asks her to keep it quiet about him and not tell anyone. The girl gracefully makes a gesture to stay silent and says she'll keep it a secret. SEO smiles, saying it was very nice to meet him. Ax stands up and thanks her, wishing her a good day. He's relieved because he thought it could have been a disaster, but he managed to talk to her with everything under control. He thinks he just needs to finish the job and log into Fate, and the day at the restaurant concludes. Finally, we return to Sioris Castle. The Master and Ax are having a friendly conversation. Ax asks Sioris to take care of himself and says he will write to his friend. The Master advises him not to be too confident. The protagonist smiles and says he will try to follow this advice. Before the hero leaves, the Master asks if he is willing to do some homework. The homework consists of Ax finding a partner he trusts. Surprised, the hero finds it curious to have to make a friend as homework. With a serious expression, Sioris says the hero shouldn't face the world alone. He believes Ax should open up, even if just a little. The protagonist seems to reflect on what his master said, smiling and extending his hand. Sioris says he won't force him, but he should consider it. The hero says he will consider the master's advice/lesson and thanks him for everything he has taught him. Master and disciple say goodbye after spending some time together. Ax begins his journey to his new adventure. The protagonist reflects that the master must have reasons for giving this lesson, but he doesn't want to be betrayed again. The sun shines and Ax is now walking on water. He is on a beach called Kusand Island, walking by the sea. Sweating, he realizes it's quite hot. A pop-up appears saying he is the first to discover Kusand Island. His fame increases by 50, and he gains a 20 experience and item drop bonus in Kusand for the next few hours. He is surprised to be the first to discover the place. Even with higher-level players around, probably for other players, it's better to repeat higher-level dungeons. Ax disagrees with this. He believes Fate is not like other games. He continues his walk across the island, determined to complete the main quest. The hero notices many symbols carved into the stones around the island. His walk stops when he finds a large stone with several of these symbols. On the stone, there is a button with strange inscriptions and an air of ruin. Ax is unsure whether to press this button or not, but he decides to press it and take the risk. He was marked with the stigma, but the effect of his title nullified this mark. The hero is shocked by the effect the button emitted. His title prevented him from being marked, and he is grateful for that. Behind Ax, a creature resembling a mutant turtle approaches. He notices something is approaching. The creature has red eyes, like the other monsters he encountered in the forest. The protagonist draws his weapon, realizing the monster is being tortured by the stigma. Ax's eyes shine. He knows it's time to put Cyrus' teachings into practice. An energy emanates from the hero's body, and the mutant turtle continues to approach. He holds the sword with confidence and perseverance, preparing a sword strike with momentum. When trying to hit the mutant monster, it manages to dodge by jumping over. Although not hitting directly, Part of the blade delivers a shocking energy to the creature. From afar, the sound of the intense fight can be heard on Kuzan Island. Many sounds of an intense battle can be heard. Axe is holding his sword with one hand. He is sweating, but doesn't seem injured. The pop-up announces he has just defeated 6 Kuzan turtles. We can see their bodies scattered on the ground. The carcasses of the creatures begin to disintegrate. Confident, Axe says this solves the problem of the monsters that were coming at him. A noise is heard, and the ground shakes strongly. The hero is surprised. Thinking it's an earthquake, he hears a strange and suspicious noise. Maybe it's the cry of some monster, and something might be angry because he eliminated the turtles. The sea begins to stir, forming a whirlpool. Water and wind churn in the sea near Axe, and from within the whirlpool emerges a man with long hair and red eyes. With such an entrance, he must be someone quite important. The person who appeared is the heir of the ancient kingdom. He floats above the waters. Axe decides not to release the bear stance for now. The heir has a sinister and frightening look. Our hero notices he has a red name, which means he is a more difficult and high-level enemy. With apprehension, he grips the sword tighter. Axe believes the guy doesn't seem like someone who fights hand-to-hand, but rather like a mage. Knowing this, he decides he will make the first move and charges at the opponent. The heir seems surprised by Axe's initiative. He raises his hands as the hero approaches in an attack pose. The long-haired man's left eye glows, and he makes a move to dodge. At the same moment, he begins to charge a spherical energy in his hand. When Axe attacks him, the energy is already charged, and he uses it to defend himself. The hero realizes that it was a barrier. Not giving up, he tries again, now with a two-handed sword strike. The heir charges a red energy in his hand again. Axe's sword strike and the barrier collide. With the sword strike, the hero manages to break the barrier into pieces. This break leaves the heir completely surprised, enveloped in a scarlet aura. He flies towards the trees due to the attack. A lot of sand is lifted, forming a cloud. The long-haired man emerges from the dust cloud. Cleaning his wounds, he is very angry, his red eyes glowing. The two opponents face each other, and the heir charges his energy. Joining both hands, he gathers a spherical energy again. Axe, determined, says he will make the next strike his last. Meanwhile, the heir's spherical energy continues to increase. The hero is very focused on his next strike. He comes at the heir with full force, who releases his attack in the form of a red ball. Axe uses his sword to deflect the attack and continues his powerful charge towards the villain. He grits his teeth, gathering all his for his next sword strike. The opponent seems incredulous and powerless. He closes his eyes and smiles. Without defending himself, Axe unleashes his strength in a vertical sword strike that hits the target. The blow lands squarely, making a huge cut on the heir's shoulder. Even wounded, the man remains standing and mutters. Axe asks if it's over, falling to his knees on the ground. The heir says he begs for mercy, for his men buried in the earth, and that this would be his last wish as a fallen king. Axe smiles mercifully and says he can fulfill that promise. The fallen king's eyes fill with tears. He closes his eyes, ending his life at that moment. Axe was the first to defeat the heir of the ancient kingdom. His fame increases by 500, and he levels up. He was the spirit of the ancient king of Kusan. To pop-up informs that if Axe frees the souls buried on the island, he will make great progress in the quest. The door to the ruin opens and the protagonist can see its entrance. He realizes it's an underground dungeon. The pop-up completes: free the souls buried on the island from suffering. On a full moon night, several crows fly and observe around. We are at the Red Fortress, Guild of the Hellhounds. A dark atmosphere hangs in the air, and on the throne, a man says he has decided the next target: Axe. This man is Baron Holt, the leader of the guild, who believes Axe is either foolish or very confident. Another man is kneeling in front of Baron Holt and asks if it's really him. The leader responds that yes, and now that Axe has shown his hand, he will die. The kneeling man accepts the command as his subordinate moves away. The guild leader gets lost in thought. He decides that now that Axe dared to kill the heir, he must pay. The Guild of the Hellhounds acts without caring about strategies, eliminating players. They act in a way that has only brought them an aura of hostility. Moreover, they have the support of a group linked to the stigma of ruin. We then move to the location of the guild war machine. The blue-haired man is sitting, talking to another man in an overcoat. He says they need a dark mage, at least level 200. Diesel confirms and says he will look for one. The leader of the war machine says they need to start preparing seriously for the war. Dark mages are perfect for casting curses and debuffs, Besides having a sinister appearance, the blue-haired man thinks that Axe may be good. But he is nothing alone, and the world he dreamed of will not exist in fate. He continues in his musings that he will attack so deeply that the hero will not be able to recover. We see the stone walls of the underground dungeon, and we are with Axe again. He descends the stairs with a torch, lighting his way. The place is deeper than he imagined. He arrives at an opening that is lit, and the place is quite large for a dungeon. Axe unequips his torch and holds his sword again for safety. Unlike the sunny surface in this place, the hero feels at home. He needs to stay alert for any traps. He senses a strange feeling, as if he is being watched on the ground. There is a brick slightly different from the others around it. Axe thinks he hates dungeons like this. In a careless moment, he steps on the brick that was different. He looks down upon hearing a click. Already imagining what awaits him, he knows he probably stepped on a trap. Poison-drenched arrows fly in his direction, several of them. He manages to dodge skillfully. In a leap, he thinks that was a close call. As he dodges, the hero notices the arrows smell of poison and decides to grab one. Axe continues his path through the dungeon, running and activating various traps, arrows, axes, dodging them all. He gives a big push to run faster. The hero is determined and brave. He sees a bright red light ahead of him. Axe wonders what this strange light could be. Suddenly, a red figure comes towards him at great speed with skill. The hero manages to dodge the figure with his sword. At the moment, he can't tell what it was, but he remains in position. Axe has been in the dungeon for quite some time, so it was only a matter of time for something like this to appear. A sinister mummy is coming towards him. The mummy can attack from long distances, so the hero prepares in a defensive stance. The undead starts coming towards him, speaking in a trembling and sinister voice. Intruder. Soon, the protagonist realizes it's not just one mummy, but several around him. Keeping his good humor, Axe thinks it's unfair to be greeted by mummies right after traps. He decides he will eliminate them. Already thanking for the experience points, the hero takes a leap, heading towards the frightening monsters, delivering a precise sword strike to the mummy's neck. It receives the cut in a vital spot for any living being. The critical attack pop-up appears. The strike didn't hit just one mummy, but was able to hit 4 at once. The cursed monsters are reduced to pieces, flying through the dungeon. One of the mummies that hasn't been attacked yet starts to charge its strike. Axe is initially caught by surprise, but soon realizes the monster's intentions. He quickly uses the sword to cut the treacherous mummy. The monster is surprised by this strike. The top part separates from the bottom, giving the monster the same fate as the others. Axe finishes his attack, wondering if there were 6 monsters in the end. He thinks the monsters there were easy, but there must be a hidden treasure. With the Dungeon Explorer skill, if he is the first to conquer the dungeon, he will earn an extra reward. When the mummies rise from the depths, the path to the gold will open under the dark mud. We are in the royal tomb of the palace. We see empty sarcophagi, and Axe manages to count 15 mummies. He continues battling against some that are trying to cast their strikes. While cutting down a few more monsters, he counts 17 kills. Gaining momentum, Axe asks them to keep coming, as they are making him level up a lot. He runs at full speed through the dungeon. Meanwhile, another sarcophagus opens, revealing another mummy. The newly released monster shines its eyes and says it will kill the intruder. The abomination keeps coming and murmuring that it will protect the king's tomb. 3 more mummies emerge from their sarcophagi, repeating that they will protect the tomb. The hero can see at least 6 more monsters coming towards him. He focuses on being able to finish them all with just one strike. Holding his sword with precision, he shouts axial slash and heads towards them. One of the abominations tries to release its long-distance strike. Before the strike hits Axe, he lands a critical attack, and he succeeds with just one sword strike. He manages to hit several mummies at once. The hero is confident in his abilities. Axe concluded his battle and defeated the mummies. He then reaches the end of the royal palace tomb and finds the king's tomb. The protagonist already imagines that the boss will have the word boss tattooed all over him. A very sinister mummy, but much better preserved than the others, lies in its tomb looking like a pharaoh with all its pomp. The monster then opens its eyes. Axe wonders if he will be as strong as Seahawk was. The king begins to slowly rise from his tomb. As he exits, he asks how Axe dares to disturb his rest. With a menacing smile, our hero is not intimidated and continues facing the king, wondering what he is talking about. The cursed king charges at Axe with his weapons while still smiling. The protagonist remains in battle stance, prepared for the onslaught. The enemy swings his machetes towards the hero with force. Axe manages to defend himself with his sword. The whole time, the pharaoh continues to smile maliciously while attacking. The protagonist is surprised by the strength of the attacks. He retaliates the strike, and the enemy defends by joining the two machetes. Then, with a counter impulse, the king turns back. Axe seems challenged by the battle. Holding his sword, he knew this enemy would be as difficult as Seahawk with sarcasm. The hero says he's getting bored, so he's gonna finish things off. The king's eyes shine. He assumes an attack position, calling Axe an intruder and saying he will die. The protagonist taunts, saying he will swallow those words. The opponents face each other on the battlefield. The protagonist gains momentum with his feet and flies towards the enemy. The king watches Axe's steps attentively. The enemy prepares for the fierce attack. The hero delivers a blow that leaves a trail with his blade. A shock can be seen as a result of the powerful strike. The fallen king shows an expression of pain and regret. Our protagonist regains his balance and continues to watch the enemy closely. As soon as he steadies himself, Axe relentlessly goes for another attack. He raises his sword with both hands, gathering his strength towards the king. Another sword strike aimed at the king's chest. This blow was lethal and severely wounded the enemy. Splitting his body, it's the end for the resurrected king, and nothing remains but his pieces. Axe emerges victorious. Asking if it's the end of the fight, the king's body disintegrates into ashes throughout the room. Our hero is the first to complete this dungeon and will receive a reward. A statue of a rooster with a dog's body appears. It is the lost royal seal, which, if used in the Forgotten Land, allows summoning its figures under certain conditions. Axe is astounded by the rare item he received. Now that it truly seems useful, he smiles confidently. For now, he has a legendary item in hand, and demonstrating its effectiveness in a forgotten land could bring him fame and fortune. We are on Kazant Island, the site of the ancient kingdom. Axe looks at the status window, thinking about the item he just received. He believes he knows where this forgotten land mentioned by the item is. The forgotten land is the ancient kingdom of the past. If the hero uses the item in the forgotten land, he will discover where the next ancient kingdom is. The pop-up window tells him to make his way to the ancient kingdom of the east. Our protagonist is satisfied to have achieved his goals and looks forward to the next legendary item. Now we move to Jutopia, specifically at the stone gates of the ancient kingdom of Jutopia. Axe is thoughtful about how he will open the gates. If this is the only way, the gate is gigantic and made of solid stone. However, as soon as he approaches the gate, it begins to open. The dungeon behind the stone gates is lit and well illuminated. The hero is surprised. As they are not torches but actual lamps, he stands thoughtfully in front of the door, unsure of what to do. He decides to enter, and the sound of gears turning can be heard. Axe continues to enter the dungeon, but he is suspicious of the door opening by itself. A trap, but since one of his objectives is to free the souls of that place, he really needs to activate all the traps. He draws his sword and bravely proceeds through the entrance. This time, he feels that the layout of the place doesn't seem so complicated. A hole in the ceiling allows a view of the starry sky. Axe reaches the center of the dungeon and can see a kind of robot in the center of the room. The robot seems made of wood and has a somewhat natural design. It appears inactive, with no light coming from its eyes. The protagonist admires the size of the pseudo-machine in the room, and knows it is a physical attacker. Axe notices it has a jewel on its forehead and wonders what it could be. A purple smoke begins to emanate throughout the room. Poisonous and dangerous smoke is detected. Despite being surprised by the toxic smoke, the hero is already preparing for battle. Axe covers his nose to try to avoid contact with the smoke. Now he activates the bear stance and summons his dragon. DD, the little dragon, emerges from the portal beside Axe, who is now ready for the clash. Somehow the smoke is having some effect on our hero. He tells DD that it's hard to breathe and asks if there's any escape. The dragon spits a burst of fire around that covers the poisonous smoke a bit. He used his breath to remove the poisonous smoke. Axe is pleased, because summoning DD was indeed a great move as it got rid of the poison. As soon as the poison dissipates, the giant robot's eye lights up. It leans forward slightly and begins to say it needs to kill the intruders. DD returns to Axe's side, who is charging his strike. The real battle begins now. The robot grabs a pillar from the place and pulls it from the ground with ease, as if it were a toothpick. It holds the pillar like a weapon and continues saying it will kill the intruders. Axe grins mischievously again with this story of killing intruders. It sounds like a broken record. The protagonist decides not to rush now and tries to learn the enemy's moves, analyzing its anatomy. The hero notices that the jewel on the robot's forehead is charged with soul energy, so he will focus on it. The robot raises its pillar weapon with both hands. Ready to attack, it swings the weapon, but Axe manages to dodge. Despite dodging, the hero remains vigilant. He is surprised because, despite being clumsy, the robot is quite flexible. The giant stares at him with glowing eyes and tries to attack again, giving no respite. The protagonist continues to dodge all the attacks. He concludes that as soon as the robot prepares to attack, he will use his move to strike the jewel. The robot prepares for the next strike, moving quickly. Axe and DD move as well. The giant makes a powerful charge against the opponent. It throws the pillar towards the hero, who manages to dodge. Then Axe begins to charge his axial slash move. Like a roaring bear, our hero charges at the giant with his move. He uses his sword with all its shocking energy. The giant is open and defenseless at the moment it receives the powerful blow directly to its head. The giant's head is split into two halves. Axe emerges victorious, believing it was easier than he imagined. However, something is not quite right in this scenario. In a matter of seconds, the robot simply regenerates. The green part, which previously seemed part of its body, begins to detach. Pieces of it start to fall off like armor, and it comes back to life. Previously a robot, now the giant resembles a human being. Axe and DD watch closely the creature that is no longer giant. So this is its true form. The creature threatens them, saying they will pay for their sins and for invading its place. The bald enemy prepares a punch and comes towards the hero's. Axe manages to dodge quickly and cleverly. Relentless, the enemy does not give up, delivering several blows to the hero, who manages to dodge them all. The protagonist understands that this being emerged from a giant shell and is now much faster. The adversary pauses from trying to attack Axe and calls him an intruder. His face darkens as he begins to prepare another punch, complaining about his evasive stance. He looks at the hero with hatred, asking how long he will wait to fight back. The protagonist laughs, mocking the enemy, saying he was just warming up. Now more focused, Axe says that no matter how advanced the enemy's technology is, it still has patterns and openings. A pop-up window appears, showing that forced logout will occur in 1 hour and 23 minutes. Our hero prepares his battle stance. Adjusting his sword, fate only allows you to stay online for a maximum of 48 hours. The adversary clenches his fist and also assumes a battle stance, facing Axe. Both charge their moves simultaneously, one with a sword and the other with fists. The protagonist notices that when the enemy assumes that battle stance, he leads with his right arm. This provides an opening for him to deliver a precise blow to the bald man's arm. The enemy is caught off guard and ends up losing the arm. The hero says he knows all 33 initial attacks of the adversary. Still unresponsive, the enemy remains static. Axe's sword continues with its shocking energy. He gathers his energies and delivers a final slash that cuts through the adversary's body. Finally, his body is split into two halves. Our protagonist looks intently at the enemy. He raises his arms again and decides to deliver another blow just as a precaution. Once divided in two, now the bald man is divided into four. Axe lowers his guard, believing it is finally over. The enemy's body begins to dissolve into ashes. He was the first to defeat the giant soldier of the ancient kingdom and receives all the rewards. Despite being victorious, the hero is tired. It had been a long time since he had such an arduous battle. Content, he reflects that the best thing he gained from this battle was combining his axial slash with basic attacks. Now smiling, he wonders what his next step will be. He looks at DD and asks if the little dragon would like to go on a treasure hunt around there. They open some chests. Axe is disappointed because he only finds empty chests. Perplexed, he realizes there is absolutely nothing there. The poor hero cannot believe what he is seeing. He defeated the boss and still finds nothing. Something catches the attention of little DD. Axe sits on the ground, upset as he fought the villain for almost 48 hours, and realizes that his only reward there was winning the battle. The little dragon notices the hero's disappointment. He uses his little paw to poke his friend by getting Axe's attention. He points in a direction. Both look in the direction DD pointed. A door is beside them. The protagonist hadn't noticed it there. It seems suspicious. Axe stands up, thanking the little dragon. He is confident that this door will lead him to a true reward to ensure its opening. The hero takes a running start and charges a strike towards the door. He uses the axial slash charged with great force. A giant explosion raises a lot of dust. The protagonist is eager to know what's behind the door, maybe gold or kingdom documents. After all the dust caused by the explosion settles, the door can still be seen intact. Axe is incredulous that there isn't even a scratch on the structure. He doesn't give up and charges another attack with all his strength. He charges at the door, delivering several consecutive attacks with his sword. From hitting so much, the hero starts to sweat and get a little annoyed. He has only 37 minutes left until the forced logout. A loud explosion can be heard in the distance. Axe managed to open the door 5 minutes before the forced logout. We move to Zerpia on a full moon night. We see the elite force soldiers of the Helldogs Guild. They have premium quality equipment. One of them positions himself to speak at that moment. It's the red-haired leader who asks if this is the place where the protagonist would be. The malicious redhead thinks greedily that the price for the hero's head is at its peak. His evil eyes shine, and he states that Axe is too tempting for him to resist. It's a beautiful, partially cloudy night on the starry plains. 2 cloaked men walk out of a circular portal. One of them is Azuz from the Explorers Guild, who is looking for Axe. He is surprised to find 3 men dressed in red. The 3 scarlet men talk among themselves, saying they haven't seen anything suspicious. Azuz recognizes them as members of the Helldogs Guild, imagining that Axe called them. One of the Helldogs Guild members notices the movement of the other men through the portal. This member is named Holt, also known as the Red Baron, and he believes Azuz's group is Axe's partner. Apparently, there is a big misunderstanding between these 2 great guilds. The members of the Explorers ask if the filthy mutts chased Axe there. Azuz continues asking where he would be and that he wishes to find him. He was clever in his response, but in truth, he was still confused. This warrior has a tracking ability called Treasure Sting. Holt approaches, provoking and saying that thanks to them, they are now also tracking the protagonist. Azuz's guild still believes that the Helldogs might be helping Axe, and Holt doesn't find them worthy of a response. The Red Baron starts fiddling with a screen and then decides to start a live stream. With a look full of rancor, he thinks that fame is an illusion, and he will destroy Azuz. The live stream receives the title, Guild Battle, Helldogs vs. Explorers. Spectators comment, some rooting for their favorite guild, others wanting to see chaos unfold. We return to Zootopia in the center of the ancient kingdom. A blue portal opens, and Axe is logged back into the game. He believes DD must have disappeared when he logged out. Our hero is exhausted because he logged out right after destroying the door, so he is without stamina. Even so, he draws his sword without fear. The protagonist discovered a portal that leads to the starry plains. The path there is a bright blue portal. Staring intently at the destination, he wonders if that's where his next quest is. The warrior decides to follow and walks slowly to the portal. Confident, he begins his journey to the starry plains. In the location, we can see the members of the Explorers and Helldogs guilds battling. Azuz and Holt stare at each other, but Holt notices suspicious activity at the portal. The spectators' comments don't stop. Everyone seems euphoric with the clash. The entrance is shining and moving, showing that someone is approaching. More comments arise, and the audience discusses who might be coming. Lightning bolts shoot out of the portal, and the warriors who were previously staring at each other pay attention to it. Holt seems worried, wondering if the one coming would be War Machine. Azuz trembles at the possibility, hoping it's not him. We see a leg coming out of the portal. Our famous hero emerges from the portal, admiring the place he has never been before. As he finishes his crossing, he starts talking about his new quest. A fierce look takes over Azuz's eyes upon seeing Axe. The members of the Helldogs Guild seem to have seen a ghost. The 2 guilds that were previously battling now focus all their attention on the hero. The protagonist widens his eyes, thinking it was a terrible moment to arrive. The man with black hair approaches Axe, preparing a strike with his sword. Other guild members also make their moves as the hero gets ready. He adopts the typical stance of someone prepared for battle. With a determined look, he knows he can't let his guard down. Azuz arrives with full force, saying he will put the hero in his place. Clenching his jaw, the attacking warrior thinks that this time he won't stop until he emerges victorious. He leaps and strikes a stylish pose, as if about to unleash a special attack. Spinning his sword, He generates a powerful energy that heads towards Axe plants his feet on the ground. Like a wall ready to withstand the storm. An explosion is heard when the strike reaches him. Raising their arms, the Hellhound Guild begins their magical attacks. The sky fills with purple lightning tearing through the air. And our protagonist is hit by all these attacks. A gigantic explosion, reminiscent of an atomic bomb, rises to the sky. A massive mushroom of flames forms, and the surrounding temperature rises absurdly. The Red Baron smiles, knowing that not even the strongest players would withstand these attacks. With a stern expression, he thinks he now only needs to deal with the explorers. However, as if witnessing an anomaly, he widens his eyes in disbelief. Azuz, still in battle stance, shouts that he will now defeat the Hellhounds. Using all the air in his lungs, Holt yells for him to use his eyes even with all the fire and explosion. The Baron notices that Axe is still not dead. The leader of the explorers is left speechless, as they are practically at level 300. The smoke begins to clear as Azuz explains that they are all elite and very strong soldiers. Defying what everyone thinks, the hero is still standing, holding his sword. There is a gleam in his eyes, and he has survived. Our protagonist is intact even after so many attacks.